for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mayor Candelora.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Rose.
Here.
Counselor Angeloni.
Here.
Counselor Caprio.
Here.
Counselor Duty. Counselor Esposito.
Here.
Counselor Fawnin.
Here.
Counselor Fucci. Counselor Wentworth.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes, May 15, 2012, regular town council?
I'd like to make the motion with 2 corrections. First correction is on page 5, item 7D. That vote should be 9-0 instead of 7-0. And the second correction is page 7, under item C. That motion should be 9-0 instead of 8-0.
Second it.
Moved by Councilor Angeloni, seconded by Deputy Mayor Rose. Roll call.
Mayor Candelora.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose.
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni.
Yes.
Counselor Caprio.
Yes.
Counselor Esposito.
Yes.
Counselor Fawnin.
Yes.
Counselor Wentworth.
Yes.
A motion to approve the May 29, 2012 special town council minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Angeloni, seconded by Councilor Fawnin. Roll call.
Mayor Candelora.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose.
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni.
Yes.
Counselor Caprio.
Yes.
Counselor Esposito.
Yes.
Counselor Fawnin.
Yes.
Counselor Wentworth. Yes.
Water Pollution Control Authority agenda. Item 3, correspondence, citizen statements. A, correspondence from Walter and Mary Plazuski, 19 Gale Drive, Northford, Connecticut. They have provided a letter. It has come to our attention that sewers might be coming to Gale Drive in Northford section for 6 homes. Our specific situation will not allow us to pay for such an expense. Even as some say, oh, can't you spread it over 20 years? Of course, with interest. I had a near-fatal work accident on September 16, 2011, and being paid through workers' compensation. My wife works 34 to 36 hours a week. This is our income. We have approached our mortgage company. We are trying to remodify our current mortgage. In addition, we recently paid off over $16,000 in back taxes to the town of North Branford. We have been awarded guardianship of our 2 granddaughters, ages 6 and 4. This alone is stretching our budget to the max. The 2 properties that would most benefit from sewers had large additions put on after their homes were built. But did anyone think ahead of what problems this might cause to their existing septic system? Was East Shore Health brought in? Why should we carry this burden when we do not have a problem? We would not ask our neighbors to fix a problem on our property. We are the only property on the opposite side of Gale Drive to be affected by this plan. We have our septic pumped out approximately every 2 years with 5 people living in our home and have no problems. If this plan goes through, there is no way in the world we could afford it. We would be bankrupt and more likely lose our home. We are no longer young and do not appreciate the thought of having this large money problem thrust upon us by our neighbors. Don't want them sewers, surely can't afford them. Signed, Walter and Mary Plazuski, 19 Gale Drive, Northford, Connecticut. Item 4, unfinished business. A, possible extension of sanitary sewers, Gale Drive.
Good evening. This item has been on several Water Pollution Control Authority agendas in the past, and was subject of a public hearing earlier this year. Basically, there's potentially 6 properties involved in on Gale Drive that could be served by the extension of a low pressure, small diameter force main extension in Gale Drive that would connect into an existing sanitary sewer line that was installed a number of years ago. We sent out questionnaires to the 6 property owners, and basically 3 out of the 6 responded in favor of the extension of the sanitary sewers. 1 was against it, and 2 were basically silent on it. They didn't respond back. And then the notice that went out, it did say that if you don't respond back, we're gonna take that as you're not interested in sanitary sewers. We gave them that heads up and gave them the option in terms of how they respond. So again, there's 3 property owners that have definitely spoken in favor of it. It's the last WPCA agenda. This was on for discussion. The discussion was basically bringing forward with a possible motion to authorize the extension of the sanitary sewers in Gale Drive. And that's included in the packet that I sent to you with a suggested motion. One of the big things that, the advantages of doing something now is the fact that we have Gale Drive scheduled to be reconstructed. It's in that road improvement program, and monies were bonded for that, designated for the reconstruction of Gale Drive. So we're able to back out the cost of permanent pavement repair, which is probably about 20% of the overall total cost of this project. Thereby resulting in the savings to the property owners for the installation if it's done now. The estimated cost per property owner is $14,000 to be assessed over 20 years. Total cost of project is about $84,000. And again, there is a motion for your consideration. The one thing I do want to add in terms of the Palachewski letter, seeing that come through, the 2 properties at the southern end actually are against the connecting into the sanitary sewers. So the possibility exists to shorten the length of the project. What I don't know, I don't think it's, if we back off 2 properties, we drop off basically a third of the cost. It's not going to be totally proportional. I've been thinking about this in terms of potential options. The options are to proceed forward, design it, and put out alternate bids. 1 to just service 4 properties, and 1 to service all 6 properties. And then report back to you once we have all this, with the idea of trying to keep that cost within what was projected. And the 2 properties that Palachewski and the other property, potentially backing them out at that point. The concern would be if I just went ahead with 4 properties, the per unit cost may go up. I don't know that until we put it out to bid, because there's some upfront costs that the contractor would have to realize. It's not a linear type progression. So something new that came up based upon that letter that just came in for the Palachewskis as a potential, alternative or something for consideration.
Kurt.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Those payments would be monthly for them, or would they be semi-annual?
Twice a year.
It's semi-annual.
So it'd be about $360 every 6 months for them.
We put together an amortization schedule on a preliminary basis that we presented to the public hearing. And it was in your agenda.
Well, it's $700 a year without the interest, so.
Yeah.
And the interest is probably minuscule, right?
The interest is not a big number in this day and age. If it goes forward, it would be, financing would be considered by the town council later on the agenda. I think Anthony recommended a 2.75 interest rate, so it's not a big number overall.
Is my recollection flawed, or did we not vote on 2 properties? I think it was Blue Jay Trail, Blue Jay Drive, within the last year to defer benefit assessment, and was it not for sewers?
It's sewers, it's elderly, there's.
And they apply every
criteria.
year, and they're considered, and then the payment is not forgiven, but it's deferred until the property is sold.
That's correct. The interest accrues, am I correct? Yeah.
So would that not be available to the Palachewskis as well? That type of a program? There's no reason why they wouldn't have that same opportunity.
If they qualify.
Yes, it's tied to the elderly, people that apply for the elderly tax benefit as well. You have to apply for that and that.
Is it limited to elderly? These people seem to have a disability.
Limited mean, there's nothing that's saying you couldn't amend the regulations.
Right.
Okay.
For a hardship or.
So if we amended our regulations to permit that deferral for a disabled couple or individual, as well as the elderly,
Sure.
that's a possibility. So they don't have to incur the expense now, but if and when the house is sold at some point in the future, they would have, that liability would have to be satisfied from the sale proceeds.
Yeah, I would think that option would be.
Okay.
considered.
Thanks.
Okay, and again, the motion at this point considers the 6 properties with a total cost, estimated cost of $84,000 and $14,000 per unit.
So would we have to approve this motion first before you went out to bid and do the add alternate, just 4 and 6? Or do you need that information first before we vote on it?
I mean, my thought process would be approve the motion. I'm gonna have to go out and design, we're gonna get numbers. And I can easily, in the bid, put it in for the whole project or back it off a little bit. And then the potential would be to, if you wanted to revisit it before we authorize going ahead, the potential, I think, may be to back off some of those properties at that point in time if the bids were favorable and it came in within the estimated per unit cost, around the $14,000 unit cost.
And we'd have to change.
Or we could defer it. I mean, we could put it all in and the potential, look at the regulations to, give some consideration to people in the
We'd
hardship
have to change
consideration.
the regs first before we go ahead with this.
Well, I think before you assess, we could bring that back in the meantime while the design.
In order to go
process
forward, you need the motion
Yeah,
passed.
but we need to move forward with the overall project and the
We don't
town
even
council.
know, we don't even know if they're open to that deferral either.
Or whether they will.
Well, that's their choice. If they
Right.
choose not to apply for the deferral, that's up to them, but it's something that's there. It's accruing 2.75% interest, which, yeah, that's some liability, but, I mean, you're talking about over 20 years, what is the total liability going to be, growing at 2.75%? It's not going to be that significant. And if they had a failure 3 or 4 years from now, they've got the opportunity to connect their property.
It's a good idea.
That's right. 'Cause it's only more expensive down the road when you have to
Right.
do these little small projects,
You can't put a
cut
septic
into additional
tank in.
pavement.
All right, so
So
we're
we
gonna
need to
move
move
on.
forward.
So we have a motion.
I would like to move the motion as proposed.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Angeloni, seconded by Counselor Fucy. Roll call.
Mayor Candelora,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose,
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni,
Yes.
Counselor Caprio,
Yes.
Counselor Esposito,
Yes.
Counselor Fawnin,
Yes.
Counselor Fuji,
Yes.
Counselor Barnes.
Yes.
New business, having none. Citizen statements and petitions. Regular town council agenda. Item 7, reports of committees, boards, and commissions. Item A, Economic Development Commission.
Mr. Mayor, the EDC met last night and had a very good, productive meeting. I think there are some plans to do a number of projects moving forward. There was a review of the business-to-business breakfast that was held a couple of months ago, and that will likely be resurrected again. It'll be a semi-annual event in the spring and fall of each year. So October is the target date for another business-to-business breakfast sponsored by the EDC, in all probability here in this chamber, with perhaps a guest speaker. The other events that they're scheduling have to do with the Potato and Corn Festival. There's interest in having some information available at the Potato and Corn Festival, perhaps with the blessing of the Chamber of Commerce with a cooperative effort involving the Chamber and the Economic Development Commission sharing some space. And the last thing is to present onto our website some pictures of available and listings of available properties in the commercial section. So we're going to focus, the staff will focus on that as a priority. And I've talked to Anthony this morning about getting some pictures up to date of properties that are available with the contact information from the realtors, and then adding new language to our website that is a little bit more user friendly. So it was a productive meeting for the EDC.
Thank you, Richard. Item B, Permanent Project Building Committee.
There's a special meeting this Thursday, June 7th, which will take place in part, will replace the meeting that we will have, our regularly scheduled meeting. So there was nothing that happened between our two council meetings.
Item C, Emergency Communications Subcommittee.
I don't believe there's a report on that.
We did have a special meeting the council attended. Ms. Joan Hilliard was here from the state of Connecticut. Item D, Potato and Corn Festival.
If I could just report on behalf of the committee, I did send the council some up-to-date information about sponsorships, about fees, a history of fees and charges for concession space and so forth, and the contact information from the committee. So you should have received that by email yesterday. And if there's any questions, I know the committee's been working on this and moving a number of things forward as we've discussed in previous meetings.
Item E, Pension Committee.
I don't believe there's a report on that.
Item F, Finance Subcommittee.
We haven't met since the last time.
Town Manager's Report.
Keep this brief and update just what I provided to you in writing. We had as Councilor Angeloni said, we have a special meeting of the Permanent Project Building Committee. The focus of the first portion of it will be to meet with our attorney representing the errors and omissions claims against some of the design team, and that will be the focus of that meeting, and I will have a report at the next council meeting on that. The Swedchick project and Wallfield relocation, which was the subject of the additional $350,000, is grant application authorization on the council agenda for that $350,000. That's under new business and is recommended for your approval. In the meantime, we had a pre-bid meeting with potential vendors that was conducted by the engineering firm, along with the town engineer and the public works director. There are probably 6 or 7 firms that are seriously interested in that. Many of those are pre-qualified under the state program, which is required, and especially since we're using over $1 million of state money, we need to follow those grant requirements, and the contract language is pretty clear, and the bid specification language is clear as well. We have had, and I don't want to steal the chief's thunder, he's here in the audience, but there is movement on hiring a dispatcher. There was a recommendation made, the application, the interviews were conducted last week, and the police commissioner has made his recommendation, and from all observances, it looks like they did a great job in selecting a very highly qualified person. You have a list of bid status items. The one thing that we can cross off is the breathing air compressor. If you recall, that was a Fire Act grant. That's been recommended. I think the total price was $46,000 and change, so it's under our budget. And then just a couple of general observations on the current fiscal year's budget. We're winding it down. Department heads have been asked to close out all their purchase orders. It's going to be a tight end to the fiscal year, given some of the payouts that we've had to do for people retiring and separating from service. Also, if you recall, last year we were fortunate to have someone from the Bureau of Rehabilitation Services as a paid intern for us, worked in the finance department. We have another gentleman who falls into that category. He's on a working interview now that's fully paid by the Bureau of Rehab Services, and there's a paid internship that could follow where the town gets basically reimbursed 130% of the expenses for that person with absolutely no commitment. So if you hear of somebody working part-time in the finance office, it's under those guidance and under Anthony's guidelines. So there's no cost or expense to the town and no commitment. And unless there are any questions, that is the end of my report.
Thank you. Any questions? Community events and presentations. Citizen statements, petitions, correspondence. Resignation and appointments. A, appointment, Abigail Rose Walson, Hazardous Waste Recycling Committee, term to expire December 13th, 2013.
I'll move the motion.
Second.
Is it the 13th or 31st? It's odd that it would end in the middle of the month.
I don't know. Maybe you could check that.
Probably backwards. They probably typed it backwards.
31st.
Okay.
First.
We could fix that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That was moved by Counselor Fucy, and I didn't hear.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Angeloni. Roll call.
Mayor Candelora?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose?
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni?
Yes.
Counselor Caprio?
Yes.
Counselor Esposito?
Yes.
Counselor Fawnin?
Yes.
Counselor Fuji?
Yes.
Counselor Wentworth? Yes.
Item B, reappointment, Jack Krasko to South Central Regional Water Authority.
I'll move the appointment. Second.
Moved by Counselor Wentworth, seconded by Counselor Esposito. Roll call.
Mayor Candelora?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose?
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni?
Yes.
Counselor Caprio?
Yes.
Counselor Esposito?
Yes.
Counselor Fawnin?
Yes.
Counselor Fuji?
Yes.
Counselor Wentworth? Yes.
Item 12, unfinished business, discussion and action. Item A, RFP number 1, 2011-2012 solid waste services.
Mr. Mayor and council members, you have in front of you a memorandum summarizing the service options that are available to the town under the request for proposal that was done approximately a month and a half ago. It was opened on May 14th. There was an appointment of a solid waste subcommittee by the council several months ago, and that committee convened a couple of times and has rendered its input into this process. In this particular case, on the results of the request for proposal, there was a proposal from City Carding Incorporated out of Stamford, Connecticut, that has been reviewed and has been determined to be non-responsive. In other words, it's a no bid to the program. That opinion was shared not just with town staff, but with the members of the subcommittee who looked at the response, and also shared with the town attorney, who concurs with the conclusion that if 9 out of the 14 requirements are not met as a basic response to the bid, then it is in fact a no bid. So we have included that information for you this evening, and what it comes down to is we're left with some options to the town. The options that were put out in the request for proposals, as previously described to you and as you would have seen in the draft RFP, are disposal only, which is, in other words, we take it, our collector takes it to what was a CRRA facility or Wallingford facility, which is run by Covanta, and we pay a tipping fee directly for those tons as they're deposited there. We had one bid response to that. One request for proposal came from Covanta, and that proposal was similar to what other towns have been receiving. But again, that's disposal only. We still have to collect the trash. We had responses on collection only, and that would, if you take those responses and you put it with disposal only, you come up with the total fee for tipping, which based on our number of tons, which is about 5,000 tons a year, that gives you the total number of cost. And we bid those options as traditional method, which is how we're collecting it now, and automated collection, which would be the automated containers that the vendor would provide toters to each and every property owner for both recycling and for solid waste collection. So we had numbers for those. Those numbers have been provided in the bid summary that came to me from the purchasing system. And then we had, for the first time in the last 20 years within the state of Connecticut, the towns now have the option, with their agreements with CRRA expiring, the majority of towns in Connecticut now have the option of doing disposal and collection in the same contract. So what we asked for was a proposal based on traditional method, which is what we're doing now on collection, and then an automated method for both. So what you have in the bid results that are on the summary shows that we have those options, and you would be adding the numbers together. The CRRA option is pretty much out the door because they can't compete. CRRA no longer has a facility within the state of Connecticut that they can 100% control, so they're no longer a player in the development of solid waste options. Covanta runs the Wallingford plant, and Covanta has projected what we asked for was a 5-year period of fees that would increase each year. The Covanta bid is not good in and of itself. You have to have someone to do the collection for us and take the trash over to them. So you're still faced with options B, 1 and 2, the traditional or automated method. The proposals that were submitted based on the collection methods came from 2 vendors. One vendor, All Waste, out of Hartford, Connecticut, bid on automated collection only. So when you take that number of $655,000 and you add it to the Covanta number at $59 a ton, you're somewhere in the neighborhood of close to $1 million in expenses. What we have left then are the proposals under the 4 scenarios from John's Refuse of Northford. And those collections, if you add those together with Covanta's price, you're fairly close. You're a little bit more than what our budget is now for collection only, both automated and traditional. If you go to collection and disposal options, it is cheaper to go with John's Refuse than it is to go with John's Refuse and any other player like Covanta. So I think the results are fairly clear. This is a 5-year agreement. John's Refuse has put on the table in their bid proposal that they're willing to work with the town on improving or encouraging recycling, especially food recycling. And if you recall from some of the previous conversations in the council, approximately 15% of our total solid waste in the town is generated by our schools. So on the tipping fees that we're paying every year, close to $100,000 or more is going towards tipping fees of solid waste that's being generated at the school. The more that we can recycle in both the traditional recyclables like plastics, glass, cardboard, paper, those types of things, but food waste is a huge burden on our solid waste disposal bills. And the vendor, John's Refuse, has made it clear that they're willing to work with the town on that and reducing it. My recommendation to the council, if the council chooses to go that direction, would be to have a mutual incentive so that as they're reducing their cost, the town is benefiting financially from those reductions. The other option that's been proposed by John's Refuse as part of their proposal was to have the town be in ownership of the toters if they decide to go to the automated collection at the end of the 5-year period. Those toters would be, I believe the investment is somewhere around $85 per, and somewhere just over $400,000 is the capital cost. But it's certainly something that we've never recommended, because we're not going to go out and buy close to $500,000 worth of equipment. We just can't afford to do that. But if there's a way to own that at the end of the period, it might give the town a better opportunity in the next 5 years to have savings long-term, keeping in mind that the requirement of the contract would be to replace any toters that get lost, that get damaged beyond repair, or repair those, so that at the end of the 5-year period, you have a depreciated yet still operable set of equipment.
You're saying we do 5,000 tons a year,
Saying we do approximately 5,000 tons a year now.
so at $59,
I'm sorry.
that's just under $300,000.
5,500 tons is what we budget a year. And in the past, what we've been required to put or pay to CRA has been 7,500 tons a year. So we're running at about 75% of
So you have to pay them a minimum amount of tonnage even if you're under it?
We don't anymore.
Is
Just
that
as
what
a-
we had to do?
That's what we had to do. If we were under that, we had to pay CRA whether that tonnage
So we
made
were
it out of.
2,000 tons under, and we had to pay for that 2,000 tons even though we didn't.
It was coming out of the commercial sector. It was coming into their waste stream out of the commercial sector. So the town never had to pay out of pocket for that, other than the tonnage it actually generated. But with the expiration of those 20-year contracts, those put or pay agreements are no longer in place. So a vendor, and All Waste is a vendor that is very active in this as well. Vendors who have far more tonnage than 5,500 tons a year are able to benefit from a lower tipping fee than even
So
Covanta.
that's still just under $300,000 a year if we do 5,000 tons. That's the math. It would be paid to a tipping fee. It would be about $300,000 a year, a little less.
Yeah,
That's what it would be. I did the
It's
math.
about 350 to 5,500 tons
Okay.
times $60 a ton, so it's about $330, $330,000.
Right. So it actually, if it's $330,000, then it actually works out even, pretty much, it washes out.
Right.
Okay. I just wanted to get that straight, how much we used and what we're paying.
But if I can just make a clarification between, if we're taking that tonnage to CRRA, to Covanta, excuse me, and the vendor is just picking it up, there's no incentive for the vendor to recycle.
Right.
If the vendor is depositing that and we're paying them based on a flat, what amounts to be a flat fee, the more that they can recycle, the more they save money, and the more their profit goes up. What I said earlier was, it would be in the town's best interest to benefit from that savings. And for the first time in 20 years, we're in a position to perhaps do that.
And John's has given us the new automated things, basically for the same price as it would be if we didn't go automated.
That's their proposal.
And to be honest with you, I drive around this town a lot early in the morning working, and there's garbage all over the place. And I think the automated way would keep a lot of this garbage from being spilled everywhere, because the animals can't get in these big containers and knock them over. They're pretty big containers. So I think the automated way, especially since it's not going to cost us any more money, I think it's the smart way to go.
What would end up happening is a proposed contract would be drafted for what amounts to be the apparent low bidder, based on the choice of the council of which direction you wanted to go, or if there was a wish from the council to do a pilot program or have certain incentives built in. We would draft that language and bring it back to the town council for approval.
Now, what would they give everybody, one container? Or say like if you have a big family or something, you need 2 containers, Cost you extra to get 2 containers?
There's an extra cost that was part of the proposal. We asked for a flat fee cost for any extra containers that would be between the resident or the property owner and the vendor.
Okay, so you could buy it outright.
But there's 3 different sizes of containers I saw in this rack. So you can choose
Yes.
one of those sizes?
Yes, everyone would get a standard size recycling container and a standard size solid waste container. If they wanted more, they can opt out. Or if it became too unwieldy for a senior citizen, for example, if they wanted a smaller container, they don't generate enough, they'd be surveyed, they'd have a card to fill out. And a card would, based on the number of bags of garbage that they generate or the amount of recycling they generate, some property owners may end up with a small solid waste bin and a larger recycling bin. That's exactly what we want to have happen. So that gives us some options, but it would be done on an implementation basis, and we would work with the vendor to do that on a route by route. It would not, in all likelihood, be done townwide at the same time. It would be done route by route, street by street, so that there was order.
How many different routes in the town?
There's 5 different routes.
How do we deal with oversized trash? Right now, we can put out bulky trash in any collection. It's not inconceivable that you have a large item you want to dispose of. It's not going to fit in this toter. What does a citizen do?
The bulky trash method does not change. We still collect bulky trash on a weekly basis. Bulky meaning a couch or a bureau that's broken down or something like that that is considered to be a bulky waste item. Scrap metal being different. So that methodology would not change. It's the solid waste that would go into those large containers, and the recycling would have to go into the containers. And if someone had typically had more than what their container could hold, and they're at the 90-gallon container or so, they would in all likelihood have to get an additional container to get it picked up. Or have friendly.
You said that we're going to start the toters as a trial, in a trial basis. Because last time this came about, several years ago, there was a huge outcry of people that were opposed to those toters. I know, Andy, you remember, don't you? And I just wondered what the citizens would feel like now, because there's a lot of elderly people, and they have long driveways, up hills, down hills, all over the place, and they just couldn't get their toters out to the street.
Well, they're on wheels, right?
But
If there were isolated incidences where people had the old type trash pails, would that be an issue? I mean, if we went to the automated, would there people not be picked up if they had conventional
Like
trash?
if they couldn't afford a toter and they put their own can out.
Well, if they were somebody that had a stone driveway that was
Yeah.
like 300 feet long and they threw their pails on the back of their truck or their bags, whatever, or just,
you get a lot of them all over town where people live in the middle and they wail.
I think that's what you're talking about, right? Yeah.
Well, I know we had a lot of opposition to it. I just wondered what it would be like now. I know everybody's still in town that opposed, a lot of them still are here.
Yeah.
How they would feel about it. If you're gonna do it on a trial basis, maybe that would work, I don't know.
Well, it's-
I like the toters. They work nice.
I don't think, if we go to automated, I don't think we can give people the option
No,
of
they have to go to automated.
well, no,
toters or not toters.
but I think, from my understanding, the method of picking up will not change. Like if they come to your garage now, they'll go to your garage. If you have a small can, you get a small toter.
Right.
So the only thing changing is the toters.
Yeah.
And the method of pickup that's happening now will still be in
It's gonna
place.
just keep the town a lot neater, because there's garbage everywhere in the morning. Really is. I mean, animals get into everything, they knock the small containers over, they rip the bags open, and it's just everywhere.
One of the things I could say about toters is that the number of years ago, and it's probably 6 or 7 years ago that it was discussed last in the town. Since then, a lot more communities have gone to this automated method. You see it a lot on the shoreline, a lot of other towns are going that way because it's a much more economical and sanitary
Oh,
way
it's cleaner.
of disposing of trash. And as Andrew, I think what Andrew was talking about is the special pull that's provided. If someone has a medical need, or they're disabled and they get a medical certification to it, and there's
Right.
basically door-to-door service or garage door service. And the vendor that we have now is John's Refuse, and I think Their record of accommodation speaks for itself. They've been very accommodating to the residents in town. And I don't see that would change all that much with going to automated. And I do think there will be some special exceptions that could be made based on what they've previously done.
Just funny that only 3 companies bid it. That's the only thing I find a little different. Especially with the way the economy is. You'd think a lot
Yeah,
of
you
companies.
would think we would have got a lot more bids. I don't know.
I can tell you that there are a number of other communities that are doing this very same methodology that we employ, probably stealing our RFP that we stole from West Hartford, that they stole from Norwalk, and so forth. So,
I just think the automated's much cleaner than the old way. And it's not gonna cost us any more.
John, did you review the final draft of the RFP that went out?
We made about 20 comments to the RFP that was submitted to us, but we did not get a copy of the final RFP before it went out. We saw the final RFP about 2 weeks later, I believe it was.
Were your comments addressed?
Most of them.
Richard, on your chart, your bid requirement chart,
yes.
so if I look at this, it seems like your first item is a bid bond, and this city carding, you've got yeses. John's Refuse, you have yeses. Your next item is certificate of insurance, and you have city carding, didn't supply one. You have no's across the board. But what I don't understand is how on John's Refuse, there's all question marks, and then there's checks. Could you explain that to me?
Absolutely. We had asked for different levels of insurance coverage, and from John's Refuse, we received a certificate of insurance, which is similar to what we have in place for them now, but on the upper level insurance, which is the disposal liability, so it's almost like cradle to grave. Once they pick it up, they're responsible for any environmental impact. I believe the number was a $3 million liability limit that was not included in theirs, but it would be something that would be included when a contract was drawn up. So it's similar to a bid bond. It's a requirement that can be complied with at the time of the contract. Conversely, when City Carding submitted their information, there was no certificate of insurance. In fact, there was no evidence in the in the proposal submission that City Carding had insurance to our satisfaction.
So how did you get the answer from John's Refuse? Did you call them and ask them about the higher rate?
I did not.
So how did you go from a question mark to a check?
The check was that they had a certificate of insurance.
Oh, the check was first?
Yes.
Or was there a check with a question mark?
The check was first, and the question mark was mine on the follow-up on the excessive liability insurance for waste disposal.
Okay, so how was the question answered? How did you answer that question?
I answered that question that they essentially complied, but that we will follow up at the time of contract, same as a bid bond.
Now, will we see the final contract, or will John review the final contract before it's all completely approved?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
I just can't believe it on
so no certificate of insurance is, that, I agree. If someone doesn't hand in a certificate of insurance, I guess, I don't know what the rules are. I might have called to see if they had insurance and forgot to put it in or something, but since they didn't, maybe you can't do that. I guess you'd have to agree that it doesn't meet the requirements. That's a pretty important aspect. But however, and you know, I gotta apologize to the people in the audience and, the people watching this. You know, Richard, I'm not pleased with, and I'm speaking for myself, with myself seeing this for the first time tonight. And I have been around a long time and have never seen it done this way before. I think it's a lot to ask for us to look at this for 5 minutes and vote on it. I have no idea how you decided that this trash committee, and I was part of it when we first went public with trash, I was here. And that trash subcommittee, that was appointed to handle the complaints for the pickup of trash. I don't know that it was appointed to handle the bids. The town council has always handled that. And I just, you know, I don't know, I don't know how we got to where we are tonight, without having the counselors who are responsible for raising the taxes, you know, look at this and look at your charts and graphs and look at the bids and maybe look at the bid form before it went out. In the past, I remember having discussions with the town attorney with the RFPs on the council floor before they went out. And I know, Richard, that in your mind, you think that that's none of our business, but I'm not convinced of that. So I'd like to hear from anyone else, if anyone else has any.
Well, I had sat in on that
Questions
last
about
meeting
this?
of the trash committee because I was very curious as to what was going on. And that's when I got privy to a lot of this information that we're seeing tonight.
But I'm just curious, like Al said, why we went from the way we used to do it with all of us discussing it here as a council to a couple of people that are on this trash committee,
That's a good question.
you know?
I can't say anything about it. That's why I went to that meeting and
Yeah,
sat in on
no,
it, Don, 'cause I
if
was
I'd known, I
curious.
might have joined you on that one,
Yeah.
here, you know?
Well,
Yes,
I do know my first year, John, we had a contract that we went through extensively before it went out. The entire council saw it, and there was a lengthy discussion. I don't know. I mean,
First of all, there's a motion on here, which I could not support, but and I don't think it's necessary. I think what you have to do now is you have to get the draft contract ready and present it to the town attorney for approval, and then bring it back to the town council for our approval. That's the way I see it, and I won't vote on this motion.
I'd be interested in hearing Richard's answer, if that's okay with everybody else.
Yeah.
To the comments that have been made.
This process started before the turn of the year. If you look back in the manager's reports, if you look back in the Friday reports, if you look at this discussion, we've been preparing for the expiration of the CRRA contract. In fact, this started 2 years ago when the previous vendor was, 3 years ago, when the previous
we were the
contractor
drivers.
was fired. And John's Refuse took over the contract and built it out to the end of the year, and there was a bid for a 2-year contract for collection of services, and it was done specifically at that time for an expiration date to coincide with June 30th, 2012. That's not a coincidence that the council has this option to consider collection and disposal in one contract. Back in January, I asked the council for further direction. The council was kind enough to appoint a subcommittee. You had 2 names coming from the Haz Waste and Recycling Committee, Mary Bigelow and Tom Scelfo. You added to that Councilor Duty to have a 3-person committee to assist my office in the development. That was the request in the development of the request for proposal. That request for proposal was finalized, as I said earlier. We solicited information from various towns and communities. We had information from Covanta and CRA, which is solicited and unsolicited. And a draft of the RFP was presented to this town council on April 17th. At the same time, comments were received by the town attorney's office, and to my knowledge, all of those comments as I check with my staff, were incorporated.
Can we stop there? This bit of the RFP of being presented to this council, I've talked to all the counselors that I can here, and not one of us remembers that.
Well, it was in our
So-
packet from April 17th, because I have a copy of it. I don't know if there was
Okay, so
discussion.
there was no
at-
discussion.
I mean, it was in our April 17th packet, because I have it. The only question, as I read through it, is there were, in the draft, there were a number of appendixes referenced, which is not part of the draft RFP. There was no appendixes, so every place they said, please see appendix A, D, F, whatever.
Again, so.
It's not,
so
to me, it's not complete.
Thank you for clarifying that, because that's what Richard had said. It was up here in a folder in our information packet. It wasn't, I don't call that presenting it to the council. I call that putting it up there with all the crap that we've told you we don't want to see. If it doesn't make it to the agenda, don't put something up here. And so I stand corrected. 1 of 9 of us found this thing in your information packet. You didn't present it, so now go forward.
No, I'm done.
You're done explaining how we got here?
I explained where we are to the RFP that was drafted and sent to, the copy was sent to the council. There was an explanation, and there has been at each of the meetings that I've raised the issue under the manager's report and otherwise, that we're developing this proposal, that we have different options. We have the solid waste committee that is working to provide information. And once the information was solicited and the request for proposal was done, we needed an objective way to evaluate each of the proposals in black and white. And the idea of using a form to have the major items to be checked off, one vendor versus the other vendor, was the easiest way to present that information. That's why you see a form that looks like this. And I can't think of any other more rational way to do that and to present it so that people can look at it and say whether someone's met the requirements or not met the requirements.
I'm confused on one thing. Was somebody disqualified? Was it city carding? We're just, without asking them? They were asked in the RFP to provide and just correct me so I understand what's going on, to provide an insurance certificate, and they didn't, and when you asked them, they said they had no insurance?
It goes,
How's that? Because
it
I
goes
just,
far beyond that. They were
Okay.
asked to provide a response to the request for proposal that included several items that were key.
Mhm.
We needed a
on
transition
this
plan.
list here.
Yes, we needed a
Yep.
transition plan so that
Mhm.
they can get us from our current vendor to a new vendor, whether or not we implemented automated disposal or not.
Okay.
They needed to provide us with a customer service plan.
And they didn't.
They did not. They needed to provide us with an operational plan so that we would know where their equipment was, how it was going to be operated day in and day out.
Mhm.
They did tell us they had 2 trucks that would be spared, but they didn't tell us where those would be. We asked for an education plan so that we could educate our folks with recyclables. We asked for a safety plan, which is critical.
So this is just basically a checklist off your RFP?
It is absolutely a checklist off our RFP.
Okay. And I'm only asking because it's the first time I seen it, and I came a little late.
On Sunday, they were at Touch a Truck. Sunday, I saw that they were at Touch a Truck, so did they have insurance to be there at that?
Who is this we're
City-
talking about?
City Carding.
Oh, okay.
So I know they had a couple
We're
of trucks
getting
there.
off path a little bit. Are we gonna,
Well, I
did we
think,
table this, or, I mean, we need more time to look
well,
at
we
this out, or what are you
end
thinking?
in July.
We in July, so I mean, now to extend, you're gonna
Gotta
have to
move
extend the
quick.
contract
But here's
by
the
30
thing.
days.
Uh-huh.
Again, so what Richard told us is he doesn't know for sure if Johns has the insurance. That's his question that has to be answered in the next phase. So I agree with Joanne that we couldn't vote on this motion, but maybe we can change the motion that says you answer the questions that you have and put it in the contract form and get it reviewed by the town attorney.
You mean that the
And then go
the
forward.
lowest bidder
And then
now?
send it to us.
The-
You raised two issues, and the first one is really kind of critical. If there's a question about the correct insurance coverage, it shouldn't just be an issue for the new contract. This is our vendor right now. We need to know that they've got the proper coverage tomorrow when they go on the street.
Can I just clarify that? They do, for what they're doing now. They do not have responsibility beyond the tipping floor. Once they go to an all-inclusive, if they were to go to an all-inclusive contract, under one of these scenarios, they would need to have that all-inclusive insurance, which takes it cradle to grave, right?
So
now
it would
they're
be
fine.
an additional endorsement on their insurance policy
For that method.
for the new policy.
Because they're
For
taking
the
a
automated, is that right?
For the turnkey, for the disposal and
Well,
collection.
they're taking it where they want once they collect it.
That's why they're responsible.
Exactly.
So the motion could be amended tonight, if everybody was, I'm just speaking for myself, could be amended tonight to have the necessary requirements to adopt this tonight. Otherwise, we have to give an
Those
extension.
requirements should be in the contract, no? You would think
It
that
would be in the
that's gonna be in the contract.
Depending on the methodology that's.
If that's not in the contract, then there's not gonna be a contract.
Otherwise, we're moving now into an extension because we're not ready for July 1st.
Right, but if we moved it forward
We don't
tonight.
Well, then that
Still
goes
explain-
back to what you were saying, though. If that's the case, why are we doing this,
Right.
in such short time here? I mean, that's the question.
Even under the best-case scenario, we're looking at getting the contract reviewed by John, getting his recommendations and comments back to us by the next meeting, which is right on the cusp of July 1. It almost seems like the prudent thing to do, if we can do it, is to extend the current contract for 30 or 60 days while this is worked out in a reasonable time frame. We get John's input. We know we're comfortable legally. We know the insurance is in place. And then,
Well, it gives them time to get if we go automated, it gives them time to get toters.
Well,
and-
They have the
from my,
toters.
I don't believe they do.
Oh, they don't?
I think we're a
thought
few
they
months
bought 'em
out.
already.
I believe Andrew's here, he may be able to answer that question. How
Yeah, the
long would it
toters?
take to get the toters?
And it's 12 weeks. 12 weeks from the day you order, they can have delivered.
So it doesn't matter, even if we voted tonight, they
Right.
wouldn't have them by July 1st
Right,
anyway,
it's not gonna
to go automated.
12 weeks
Yeah, but
delivered,
if
then they
they
got
were
to
awarded the
distribute it
contract,
around
they would
town.
Yeah.
still pick up the trash.
Right, but then, yeah, and
The way
it's
they're
this-
doing it now.
Yeah, but to put the system in place is 12 weeks out.
To get it implemented, I'm sure it's a good 6 months.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Well, on this chart, they didn't have. This guy didn't have.
Richard, can you explain this motion, just what it means to you?
I don't believe that. I just don't.
Yeah, I don't have a comfortable feeling about it.
I just don't believe it.
The recommended, the option for the council is to determine which method of collection, which of the options it would like to choose. Based on that selection by the council, then an award can be made. The council could elect to go with Covanta and pay disposal only and pay John's Refuse or someone to collect it only. And that is the typical method that we have, and the numbers, as Councilor Caprio pointed out, are pretty close to what the turnkey numbers are. So the methodology then determines who gets how the contract is awarded. That was the intent
And
of
the
that.
methodology also states that what they have to go do to get the contract, whether they have to get that additional insurance
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing, once we pick the methodology, then they have to go out and get the extra insurance if we go with the automated and they dispose of everything.
And their performance bond has to be made to the extent of that contract.
So then, once the
So that's what
contract,
they're waiting for, is their performance bond, the new contract. Is
The
that
new
what-
contract would include a new performance bond.
Special insurance.
He got none on
I guess to follow up to Joe is can the contract be extended for 30 or 60 days so that we have time? Is that, I think we need to know that first before, that's another crucial piece as to what we would do.
Right, well, the only thing we should pick tonight is what kind of style we want to go, pretty much. And then they have to move forward on a contract, one way or the other.
I mean, the recycling committee, their recommendation was to go with automation or keep the current way.
I don't think they made a recommendation on that, did they? They just made a recommendation that, that we,
The consensus seemed to be from the committee that automated was a preferred way to go because it encouraged single-stream recycling. That was their comment.
The thing is, automated costs as much, it's the same cost.
It's the same cost, right,
So
as
what- I mean,
traditional.
why wouldn't
right.
you go to an
But
automated?
it doesn't say in the motion.
when
what-
it's the same
No,
cost?
we'd have to.
No, we have to fill that
We
in.
have to
Alright.
set
That
that what
gives
we
us
want
the
to do.
option.
We have to tell them we want to do the automated disposal, is what, if that's what we're going to do. Then they have to go out and they have to get their insurance, they have to get their bonds. John's got to do the contract, and then we put it all together, look at it, and then we vote on it. This is the way I think that it's
It
going to
is-
happen.
it's not the same
So
amount.
how long does that take?
No, it's actually cheap.
No.
Look at their automated
actually
pricing, look at their
cheaper. Yeah,
disposal.
you're on the wrong
price. You're on the wrong page.
I see that.
This is,
This is,
How is the automated cheaper,
okay,
though?
okay.
Yeah.
It's not cheaper, Don, it's the same cost.
Yeah, it is the same cost.
It's the same cost as traditional.
And they're giving us
I
the
turned it over
totes.
to read something.
and they're building in the toters with it.
As I understand it, the savings on the
Okay, I'm looking at the
on
wrong page,
collection
I'm sorry.
pays for the actual cost of the toters.
I see.
The man-hours that are saved.
Yeah.
Right. So the option is collection only, traditional or automated,
Correct.
or collection and disposal, traditional and automated. That's the blank we have to fill in.
Correct. Atta girl, bro.
That's what it comes down to.
That's what it comes down to.
What did the total thing cost us last year or this year? Anthony, or
Check out
off the top of your head?
I'd be lying to you. I can go find out, I'll find out.
Budget is about $810,000, $815,000.
And that's what was last year's, too?
That's this year's. We reduced, actually reduced this year's by about $10 a ton, $30,000 or $40,000.
Yeah, because in your conversations, Richard, we were supposed to have this huge savings.
Driver's seat.
So that, we didn't realize that?
No, we did not. There is some savings.
Why
there.
did we think that? It was gonna go down?
We thought the tipping
Oh.
fees were gonna be a
All
lot
right.
less than they are, or?
Because the new plant open.
I believe that the proposal from John's Refuse, as I said earlier in the in my discussion, if there is a way to incentivize on recycling that food out of the schools or the recyclables out of the schools, that's a major component. That's 15% of that disposal fee. That's $50,000 just in and of itself, just on disposal. So if there's a way to incentivize that, then that will have some substantial savings.
And they're buying the toters, or the town's buying the toters?
The proposal is for John's Refuse to buy the toters. The town has the option of owning the toters for $1 at the end of the contract period.
And then what about replacement toters?
Replacement toters are required in the contract,
How many?
as needed, I believe.
I mean, in my opinion, single stream moving forward, automation and the way recycling is headed into the future, seems that it's a no-brainer to me, in my opinion.
When the contract is done, is that where it's spelled out as far as the frequency of school pickups and all of that? So in order to try to incentivize that, so that is there a way that it can be worked out so that we can know what the schedule is and the schools know what the schedules are? Because I'm speaking for myself and working at one of the schools, our recycling fills up very quickly because we are very active in trying to recycle, but the pickup isn't there. So it ends up just getting thrown into the regular dumpster then. And so I think in order to do that, we need to find a way as to how we can get the schools on the same
more
program, so
frequent
that we can,
pickups.
right.
Exactly.
That
I
it's
mean,
not like, oh, we're only scheduled for 2 a week. Well, what do we have 4?
They should do like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or something like that, probably.
Right. And I mean, and so, and it may take time to get to that point because of the whole education piece on it.
Right. And we will.
The thing is, even if we move this forward tonight, it's still not gonna be all done by July 1st.
Correct.
So, I mean, we're gonna have to extend it no matter what. Okay, because even if we approve this and move forward, by the time the contracts get done, everything's hashed out, and it comes back to us, it's not gonna be up and running by July 1. It's gonna be the 10th is Sunday. So, you know, I mean, one way or the other, we're gonna have to extend this anyway. But we should think about which way we wanna go, guys. I think that's a good thing to do. I mean, at least then we know what way to move forward with the contracts.
I think if nothing else, I think we ought to extend the contract at least a month or 60 days, but we have to do.
So even if we
John, are you
extend them, we still
comfortable with
have
the
to
whole
have them.
methodology
I know.
of this?
Take time.
I
Are
know,
you,
but I think we
are you
should
comfortable
take
with the
care of
whole
that before.
Right.
methodology
We don't
that
even have
was
the real
used here
contract
and
yet.
everything?
Well, you can't have a real
Can't have
contract
till we
until we
find out
pick the
the method.
method.
Decision to like,
Unless we pick the method, there's no contract. Stop laughing, Ann.
I had no
Yeah, say something,
participation
will
in
you?
in the methodology, so I don't propose to be an expert. I think the bottom line is the council comfortable, and by that, has that fundamental level of understanding of what transpired and what you want to do. I'm, in sitting and hearing the discussion, I'm still not sure whether we're doing, whether the preferred method is collection and disposal with one vendor, automated or not, automated or traditional, or whether we're splitting up those, the collection and the disposal. And as Vinnie says, that's going to dictate what the contract says. And I would also point out a minor detail, and that is that the current vendor would have to agree to an extension, and I presume it would, but it's not, indentured servitude has been abolished in this country a long time ago, so they would have to also agree to such an extension. But I don't, you're right, Mr. Mayor, the last time we did this, the council had a great deal more involvement, and particularly yourself.
yeah.
And so by the time it was developed, everybody was much more familiar with it. So we're kind of approaching it from the other end this time. And, it's up to the town council to decide, how they want to do it. I wouldn't know, we need 3 bids under our ordinance. We need a minimum of 3 bids. Council has the right to throw out all the bids. Actually, under the RFP, the town can throw out all the bids, or any bids that it wants to. Or it can, or it can come to a conclusion.
Arbitrarily, they can throw out bids?
Yeah, these are invitations, these are not contracts, so the only problem is when you do that, all those people, or all those entities that submitted bids knows what everybody else bid, and that could skew the next round of bidding. But I think you've touched upon all of the aspects of this process. You just have to put it together now, if for no other reason than for me. But I think you've had a discussion on the traditional method, the automated method, who's the most competitive if you break these bids up.
Gives the best service.
Yeah, and obviously the proper certification and insurance.
So until we pick which method we want, we cannot move forward.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion.
Out of girl.
The town council hereby selects the following methodology for the collection and disposal of solid waste in the town of North Branford. Collection and disposal automated. The council further instructs the town manager in conjunction with the office of the town attorney to present a draft contract for council approval at the earliest opportunity.
So moved. I'll second it. Or did you?
One more item of discussion. My reservations are these. I know nothing about trash collection other than bringing my trash out to the curb once a week and it goes away and I bring in the empty trash can. That's what I know. What I'm hearing tonight is we consistently are being told, pick the methodology we're going to use. Is it split between Covanta and the person who picks it up? Is it streamlined? Is it toters? Is it the old system? I heard Joanne say she heard a lot of objections from elderly residents the last time
And
around
from others.
when this was considered. In my simple mind, I know most weeks I have 1 or 2 trash cans that I bring out. At Christmas time, if I have my wife's family over, I'll have 6 trash cans. What do I do then? I'm not an old person, but I've now got 6 cans of trash and 1 toter. I don't understand what these different methodologies are, and I can't imagine the citizenry as a whole understands it. And yet we're being told to pick a methodology, instruct John to draw a contract, come back to us with his recommendations on the contract, and we're going to adopt that. Nobody, this committee that was nominated, or the vendor has stood up and told us, here's the difference, here's what
Right.
you're going to get for service, here's what you have now, here's why it's going to be better, here's why we think we're going to get more recycling out of this. I'd love to see more recycling. I see neighbors who put out 4 and 5 trash cans, and in years, I've never seen them put out a single recycling bin. Almost to the point where I want to knock on the door and say, hey, you know, we save some money if you really separate your trash from your bottles, but how do we incentivize them to do that? I don't hear that being explained. So while I'm being asked to vote on this, and while I know other communities are going this way, the reservation I'm left with is I'm voting somewhat blindly, and that bothers me.
Thank you, Jack.
And
Same
maybe
way.
other people understand it. So I'll confess my ignorance and
Right.
say, here's my problem.
Well, would we like to get briefly educated? I mean,
If I can make the point, you have the option when the draft, if you want to leave the motion open-ended, the language in the contract can have an either-or possibility. So the language is going to be very similar, whether it's automated or traditional collection, if the vendor is responsible. And John can approve both, and you can have your explanation and approve the contract that you see.
So we're gonna
is-
Yeah, we've got the
Prepare
guys in the
separate
audience.
to,
Could we, does anyone object if we let them
Not at
answer?
all.
Andrew, you want to get up?
Anything I can learn, I would appreciate.
Anytime.
Come on, Andy, it's all your fault.
I brought the barrels. I did last time, it was 7 years ago, you're exactly right.
Could you state
We'll
your
go
name,
around
could you
it.
state your name and address for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. Andrew Bizzuto, John's Refuse.
We have a graphic on site for you?
Is there a camera here?
Yeah, you're on.
They're all over the place. Andy.
Anyway,
On television.
I think most of you have seen the process, excuse me, anywhere north of the New Haven County, primarily Wallingford North, they're on this system already. They're plastic barrels with wheels. They can literally roll out to the curb and, roll them in and out. Very easy, actually easier to handle than a traditional trash barrel. The premise is, by instituting a larger barrel for recyclables, Joe, they will use the volume. As we go through what the transition in our waste stream becomes, up to 75% of what we're putting in the barrel now is recoverable waste. That's why we're going single stream large barrel, because if you really do it well, you will have this for trash and this for recycling. So that's the single stream premise. They have done it throughout the Hartford County. I think 90% of them towns are on it already. It hasn't really gotten too far south. North Branford would be one of the first towns in the New Haven County area. Second to New Haven, who has already instituted these barrels. So in New Haven County, guys, those blue barrels you see all throughout New Haven are exactly what we're talking about tonight. We tried to bring this here 7 years ago, Joanne remembers well. There was some opposition because people weren't really accustomed to seeing these barrels. I gotta also tell you, 30% of the residents of this town over the past 3 or 4 years since we've taken over from the last vendor have come and purchased our barrels. They are everywhere in the town, and I'm not saying for any other reason, but those are exactly what we're talking about, wherever the camera is. Most of your neighbors have one, and if it's not mine, it's the Home Depot version, gray with a lid with the wheels. There's nothing more than that to the barrel that we're talking about today. They are in excess of $60 a piece. There are 9,000 of them that I have to buy for this town. If you take the price of the barrels, almost $500,000 worth of barrels, remove that annually from my price, I'm less than I was before I offered it to you. If you look at apple for apple, my price versus their automated price, it's $80,000 savings. And they didn't give you barrels in the end. Can only express to you guys enough that our bid is true and actual to provide you with the barrels at the end of the contract, because in my industry standard, the other folks thought I was crazy, because if I kept the barrels, Johns, the next bidder has to buy them, doesn't he? Then your bids stay high, doesn't it? But as a true town resident taxpayer, I thought it'd be in lieu of me to give you the barrels, so then next bid round, you have the equipment and the ability to save in reducing of the bid price because there's no barrels to purchase. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Subtract $53,000 a year from my bid, I'm at $430,000. It's less than I bid 4 years ago. Guys, I don't mind extending a contract, helping you through. I gave you $40,000 back on the last budget, remember? I have no problem being part of the solution, but really, I just feel a little bit,
How do we handle the six trash cans at Christmas?
Joe's talking about.
we are contracted to take it all. If there's 6 barrels in, Joe, and the automated truck comes, these trucks have the door that we can manually get out and throw it in as well. The bulky waste, we have a separate vehicle that collects it weekly like we do today. You put couches out, they go away, usually the same day, sometimes next day. We try our best, but it's the same you have today. We're responsible for everything on that curb. I really think the premise is right. Don't forget, guys, I sat there as a council member. From a councilman's perspective, to have a fixed number over the next XYZ years. And again, the RFPs that we are receiving, we're second again today on a new one in Ansonia, are all coming out just like this. Towns are getting out of the waste business, and they're contracting vendors to pick it all and take it away, because really it's not lieu of municipalities to be paying for my disposal. It also puts the responsibility on me to recover more. So it's true in what they're saying. I really, the whole idea.
I think it's got nothing to do with you, Andrew. I think it's just how the process proceeded this time,
Right.
is what it is.
Oh, I thought it was the automated thing. I just,
No.
that's proven. The service is everywhere.
Oh, the automated is the way, as far as I'm concerned. I
Yeah,
think
all
it's the
right.
way to
Your
go.
service of pickup will be the same for elderly. If they need a small, they're just getting a toter smaller to theirs.
Yeah,
If
we'll
you
go up
pick
the
at their
driveway. We do
at
that
their
for a number of
house.
residents in North Branford now, and it's really gonna remain the same, but it's just so much more uniform, clean.
Cleaner.
Everybody has 2 barrels, and
see it
there's
everywhere.
more volume for recycling. We're hoping that there's less volume thing. The schools, I cannot wait to take our schools and make them the example of how much we can recover. I can tell you right now, it's over 75% of what they generate we can recover. And I definitely will prove it to you in the next round how much we can do for the schools. We did the environmental class day over there just about a month ago. And we met with Mr. Shoemaker, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that we can do as we move forward if we get there.
One
So,
last question.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep the trucks in town?
trucks are here.
We get the tax
Trucks are
money on
here.
them too.
Yeah. I pay, it's almost 70,000 we pay in taxes annually.
I have no
We
doubt.
hire 6 guys from town, but again, it isn't about us. I hope it isn't anyway, guys. I can't tell you enough. I've left all my money on the table with this thing, and I've given you the benefit, so,
Thank you.
no problem.
So what was our motion, Rose, that we had?
To go to the automated with the.
Collection and disposal automated is the methodology. And then instructing the town manager with the town attorney to present a draft contract for council approval at the earliest opportunity. We left out authorizes the town manager to award the request for proposal accordingly. So if you want to amend it to.
The only thing I would say is, and I'm gonna take what Andy said, and Richard, in our contract, we wanna kind of use some of his words that he's responsible for the trash at the curb, so, and maybe there's something in there that says people have to, you know, okay, you guys always have extra trash cans and our guy has to get out of the truck, so you need two, but somehow cover that in the contract, so, you know, maybe they have to take extra trash cans so many times, and then maybe you have to buy a extra one if you're a big family or
Or
something.
go to a larger toter.
Or something,
I'm gonna have
but
to buy a
let's
couple.
make sure that that's covered.
But have documentation.
Yep.
Yeah, got it.
So do you want to amend it so that he can award the RFP according
Do we have to clarify when we're doing
No.
this, or we're
In the
going to
contract.
extend the existing contract?
Absolutely.
Okay,
That's the problem we had, we didn't get the contract.
Yeah.
so we'll just leave it as is, the motion
Well, I
as
guess
is.
we're drafting a contract with them.
Yeah, it's gonna come back to us for approval.
We have to
Right,
approve it.
but it's the understanding, we're drafting a contract with John's Refuse.
Right.
And they're gonna provide the insurance and everything that.
They have to
and
provide
make
everything
John
they have to
happy.
provide.
Yeah.
John's gotta make sure of it, and we gotta look at
Okay,
it.
so that's, everybody's clear on that?
And we need an interim agreement that they're going to continue under their present contract until this is in place.
Well, won't we still do, even if they get the contract, because they're already under contract.
You guys are
Just
gonna
keep
pick the
doing this
trash
Expiring
out?
July 1.
If we're awarding now, then we just keep, you know. if
You
we're
keep
awarding,
going
we go to
until it
barrels
switches
tomorrow,
Until we get it
the
straightened
service
out.
going, Until the barrels get here, then they go right in place. They're all barcoded.
Does the motion need the company name that we're awarding it as well?
Well, that's what we were wondering.
I think you said that, didn't you, Ron?
No, we didn't, 'cause it didn't, there was nothing in the measure, in the motion.
John, what do we do here on this motion to,
So we can just
we
amend
need
the
to
That's
motion.
the
name-
methodology, and
Do we need to
what would
name
be
the
clean would be
contractor?
to make an award. That's not an award, it's a blank. You get a draft contract from.
so we need to award this pending on your approval of a contract and them meeting all the requirements of it.
Right, and I've asked the town manager to seriously furnish me with a disc of this meeting, so we will absolutely contain everything that was represented.
So what do we need to do with our motion then?
So we need to amend the motion.
Name the
So
contractor.
that we can
To
award
award-
the request for proposal,
Right.
right?
Yep, do that.
Is that what you, make it clean?
Inclusive of the company name or no?
If the council is comfortable in doing that, that would be sufficient. It's subject to, of course, agreeing on, first of all, you approving the contract and then agreeing.
How can we agree? We never saw anything.
No, it says to present a
The next
draft
one.
contract
To
to
the
the
council.
council for approval, so, okay.
We're going to negotiate a contract with them anyway on the incentives and so forth, so.
Okay, so I'd like to amend the motion to include that the request for proposal will be awarded to John's Refuse and Recycling LLC.
Moved by Council Angeloni, seconded by Deputy Mayor Rose. Roll call.
Mayor Candelora,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose,
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni,
Yes.
Counselor Caprio,
Yes.
Counselor Esposito.
Yes.
Counselor Fawnin.
Yes.
Counselor Fuji.
Yes.
Counselor Wentworth.
Yes.
All right.
When can we expect to see that?
Tomorrow morning at 9?
There you go.
At the next council meeting in 2 weeks?
No, I'm serious. You know.
Oh, at the next council meeting?
No.
Before that, what I could do is get it to you before the next council.
So that we can have it on the agenda for approval.
And you
at
can
the-
also look at it before the.
All right.
That would be a good idea.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like this last minute, you know.
All right,
All right.
December.
Item,
While we're on council meetings, on the council meeting, I'd like to just make I don't know if we need a motion, but the high school graduation is on the 19th. I don't know if we can move the
That'll-
meeting to
that can come
the
under a
20th or under what?
Well, we aren't.
we aren't on that yet. We'll get there. Don't worry.
Oh,
You're
got it there?
you're ahead of yourself.
Don't worry about the high school graduation.
All right, item B, Amato's building demolition.
Mayor, at a previous meeting, this item was tabled to June 5th. There has been there's been a draft request for a bid for the demolition, but we've not put it out yet until the council decides if in fact they want us to go in that direction and incur the $30,000 or so in expenses that may or may not be collectible.
Now, John, we already got a court approval to go on private property to do this?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely, and to lien the property.
And then have we leaned the taxes and everything else?
Well, that's a different matter, but certainly if they haven't paid their taxes, it would be subject to being liened as well, which has priority. I think we had the discussion last time.
We can get that
Taxes are
money
in
because it
co-lien,
has
it's
priority.
automatic lien.
Well, they're on the suspense list, so that's why I'm
They're on the
asking.
suspense list?
So if they're on the suspense list, that means
Personal
we're,
property or real estate?
That's personal property, not real estate.
wasn't real estate? So I guess we gotta decide what we wanna do.
What was this, the last discussion I remember about this was that the fire department was going to,
No, they
They
turned that
couldn't.
down.
Can't do it.
Can't do
They
it.
don't have we don't have a demolition permit. Is
Yeah.
that's what it came down to?
We don't have a demo permit, so we can't do it.
The town
Town.
can't do it.
License.
A demo license, that's it.
And we can't do the controlled burn.
So, at the last meeting that I was at, we were talking about getting prices on, or we had some prices on.
It's a contract price.
They had discussed giving it to somebody in lieu of
Taxes.
Yeah.
And we weren't
And we
fond of
decided
that.
against that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was based on the equipment and labor prices for hourly
Mhm.
services. So prior to putting a bid on the street, we just wanted to get a direction and then we can.
Well, is there any possibility we would save money by going out to bid? Or should we go the route of just using equipment and labor price?
No, I think that equipment and labor price is behind us, but we just wanted to make sure before we go through the legal expense of putting a bid on the street, that we have a direction from the council.
And we got no response from the owners. They're not doing anything, so.
I will tell you, if they would have to put out cash, we should probably wait until after July 1st. We're nearing the end of the fiscal year, and it's going to
So
be,
if it went
there's
out
no
to
money
bid,
left.
it
Well,
wouldn't be
it's only 3
until
weeks
after
away
July
anyhow.
1st
Yeah,
anyway.
let's table it, move on.
Equipment and labor, using the procedure we're
They
gonna
didn't
use.
want to forgive $40,000 worth of taxes.
Yeah.
See, on that equipment bid, labor and material on your labor and trucks and equipment and all that, it just didn't add up to, their hourly
$40,000,
rates
right.
to the price. They had an excavator at, I'm gonna make stuff up, but it was somewhere around $165 an hour for an excavator. So, having been involved in that a lot, there's no way that the excavator could be there more than 2 days. So, if we gave him 2 10-hour days, that comes out to about $3,200. So, then we'll give him another machine, and, that could be the smaller skid steer that they had in their proposal. And we'll give them the $165 an hour again or whatever, and give them 2 10-hour days. And, so now we're up to, $6 or $7 grand. And then I think what they did was, they had these, like we were moving hazmat material
Yeah.
in these enclosed trailers, and that was where they nailed us. And we all know that it's gonna go in open dumpsters with a tarp on it and head to a transfer station. And so then we're gonna say that we'll give them 20 dumpsters. And we're gonna say they're really heavy, so we're gonna call them $1,000 each. So I come up with on the top end that this job is worth, when you're a town bid, labor, time and material, $25,000, $26,000. And I think that I've been very generous with this. So how we got $40,000 didn't make any sense to me.
Well, we didn't do it.
So, we didn't do it.
Right.
But I don't wanna act like we didn't do it for for good reason.
Right.
But there's no sense having these bids if we're not gonna follow them.
Well,
You
hold
know,
on. Can we go to bid? And if the bids come in as high as labor and material or in that vicinity, do we have to accept a bid, or can we just reject them and go to the labor and
Go
material?
the other way.
If we get a bid at $18,000, then maybe it makes sense to take that bid.
Because we weren't
John, you
taking,
had
we
said
weren't
it
taking
was-
the foundation either, correct?
Right.
Correct. You had said bids are just invitations, so we have the right to,
Refuse.
You have the
Refuse them.
right to reject any and all bids.
Now, let's say we go in there, we take this all out, and somebody hits the well or a septic tank by
Well,
accident.
that would be that
That's your
person's
insurance.
problem.
That's their problem, not ours.
So I would say let's go to bid then.
Let's go to bid.
Let's go to bid
Okay.
and
Bids and see what they
see
come
where the
in
bids come in. And they all say that we have the right to refuse any and all bids, correct?
Purchasing ordinance says that.
Purchasing ordinance says it, and this RFP said it as well.
Okay,
Okay.
so let's do it that way then.
Do we need a motion?
Do we need any action on that, or?
No, because it's going to come back to you, so.
All right.
Okay.
It'll be post July 1st.
Item C, North Branford High School roof.
There's nothing new to report.
We're not hearing of any leaks over there, Richard, at all?
Not heard of it, any leak
Good.
from that building.
Item D, charter revision. Thursday night is the public hearing. It's been posted, it's on the town website, it's been in the newspaper at 7 o'clock at the chambers here. The Charter Revision Committee did a great job. They've finished all the items that were sent. So this Thursday, 7 PM is the public hearing. Item E, 27 Branford Road, proposed land swap.
I'm going to recuse myself from this because it involves the property.
What's that?
It's our property.
Mr. Mayor, this was a land dispute that was brought to the attention of the town engineer probably a year and a half ago or such, when a survey was conducted on the Rose family farm. That's the property at 27 Branford Road. The proposal has come back to the town council, which then referred it to the Planning and Zoning Commission for an 8-24 referral. In your packet this evening is a description of the two pieces of property that are subject to the exchange. They're indicated on the map that was prepared by Cristolo and Associates. There's also a valuation that was done by our assessor, Christine Barta, on the two parcels, one being 6,850 square feet and the other being just over 7,000 square feet. The recommendation is that we accept the property that is worth just over $20,125 to be precise, located on Valley Road, in exchange for property that has virtually no consideration, $188 in the middle of the area adjacent to the North Farms Park. And that is the motion that is before you, and it will be subject to the certificate of title and the warranty deed as approved by the town attorney.
Do I have a motion to move this?
I'll move the motion.
I'll second.
Moved by Counselor Fucy, seconded by Counselor Angeloni. Roll call?
Mayor Candelora?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose? Counselor Angeloni?
Yes.
Counselor Caprio?
Yes.
Counselor Esposito?
yes.
Counselor Fawnin?
Yes.
Counselor Fucci?
Yes.
Counselor Wentworth?
Yes.
Thank you. 13, new business discussion and
Anthony,
action.
before you move forward
Yes.
with that, I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda to include 13I for discussion on the town manager's evaluation and possible action.
Second. Yeah.
Aye.
Moved Moved by Counselor Fiusi, seconded by, was it you, Rose?
Yeah.
Counselor Angeloni. Roll call?
Mayor Candelora?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose?
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni?
Yes.
Counselor Caprio?
Yes.
Counselor Esposito?
Yes.
Counselor Fawnin?
Yes.
Counselor Fuji?
Yes.
Counselor Wentworth?
Yes.
Okay. Item A, Police Commission. You want to take it and begin with it? or-
Yeah. I actually asked, and had conversations with Anthony about this and asked that this be put on the agenda. You know, rumors on the street, what you hear is that when we may or may not have been hasty on some of our cuts, possibly with what we're hearing is that something we cut, maybe to do with training or something at the police department, is actually costing us more money than we save. So I felt if that's true, you know, we probably should look at it again. So what I wanted to do is have the chief come in and explain that to us, tell us how it's costing us more money, and then see whether we feel that we should look at it again or not. So
Want me to explain it, or what, please?
whoever,
Can you state your name, where you're from?
Chief Canale, Branford Police Department. There was a motion and it was approved for a $5,000 cut on our straight time training. Right now, currently, each officer in the police department has to do 24 hours of training at straight time. In other words, if that officer works during the day and we have training in the evening, instead of paying him time and a half, he gets paid straight time, each officer up to 24 hours. So actually, your $5,000 cut would reduce that amount to an unknown hours per officer. It would actually cost the town more dollars because they would have to get paid, obviously, time and a half. Anything over their 8-hour workday or anything over the 40-hour work week that involves training, currently they get paid straight time for the first 24 hours. After the first 24 hours, then it's time and a half.
Do they go over the 24 hours?
Yes, quite a few times. Because we have mandated training that we have to comply with the state.
Chief, I have one more question, just, I don't want to interrupt you, but I was told that there was like excess money left in this training account each year. And I think that's one of the reasons that they looked.
That's untrue.
Okay. So that's what I was curious.
So probably that's what you heard, the rumors that it's actually going to cost the town more dollars. Obviously, that's the truth. 24 hours of straight time will be reduced to an unknown amount. We haven't figured that out. May reduce it to 15 hours of straight time, and therefore anything above that we pay time and a half.
I disagree. The contract calls for 24 straight time, we can spend it out as straight time and then backfill that account. We wouldn't violate the contract.
Doesn't say about this contract.
If you're gonna pay them overtime instead of straight time.
Anything after 8 hours, if they worked during the day and they had training at night,
Straight time training.
straight time training.
Right, so we're gonna honor that and pay them the straight time training. If that account doesn't have enough money in it, we'll move money from somewhere else to make it work. You're not gonna pay them overtime.
Right.
You're gonna honor
So
the contract.
we wouldn't pay them overtime if we cut that account?
Not after the first, you would after the first 24 hours,
Right,
because if the
right.
contract
Whatever
says
the
20.
contract calls for, you're gonna pay straight time at that rate.
Right.
We may be mixing apples and oranges. We got a budgetary decision that was made to cut a specific account for $5,000 or whatever it was. And we've got a contractual issue with the police union
Right.
whereby they provide 24 hours of training time that they get paid straight time for.
Right.
So we got the obligation to fund that, to find the money, but your guys really are not entitled to additional dollars because they're doing what they're supposed to do under their contract. Am I right, Anthony?
That's the way I would interpret it.
And currently, I believe from what I heard from the union members, that's an item on the table that they want to remove because they want everything paid at time and a half.
They can negotiate that in their new contract,
So, but
but I'm not sure it's a budgetary item that makes a difference tonight.
No. Right, so it's just,
I think your guys get paid what they're entitled to. That's not in dispute. And we got to find the money, and we might have to make
well, if they make
move some money.
If they move money the last 3 months of the year, I'm not sure how Anthony does that. But
We're not sure either, but he does.
and
and we
also.
stay within budget.
Yeah.
And also, while I'm here, the council knows that we have to backfill 2 particular positions, one being that of the retirement of Brockett, he left, and also the pending retirement of...
Well, it wasn't a retirement on Brockett, right? It was a resignation?
Resignation.
Okay, it's different than a retirement.
And the retirement of Papalizio effective, I think it's July 11th or 13th. That paperwork has already been submitted. Brockett is no longer working with us. He's working with the town of East Haven, and Papalizio is going to be leaving on the 13th. That paper has been submitted, and it's been approved by the Board of Police Commissioners.
Where was Officer Brockett on the pension vesting scale?
I think he had 10 years in.
He was just 10 years. So he'll be vested in a plan, and he'll sort of take that with him until he's ready to retire?
At age 55, he's eligible to collect.
He can come back and make an application for those benefits?
That's correct. He's terminated vested.
Okay. Thanks, man.
Do we do a, like a, you left us interview?
Exit.
An exit interview and ask why, or is that
Well,
helpful?
it's
or-
very personal why he left.
Okay.
He spoke to us, and he also spoke to the lieutenant. It's involved in some family matters, and I like to keep that
Okay.
that private.
No, you need to. I just was wondering.
But what I need permission from the council, we're also looking at upcoming possible retirements, because these people are going to be reaching 25 years of service. That being one, Ronnie Anorfio, December 1st of 2012, he's also eligible to retire. He'll have 25 years of service. And after that, it's July 13th, 6 months later, of Anthony Nucolo. So I'm looking for permission to fill 2 present and 1 in the future, if he goes.
I think, Chief, you want to just make notice to the council that the next class is October, correct? Lieutenant? So it would just be, if we had gotten in papers from Onofrio, then we could be proactive in getting a guy in 3 months possibly before he leaves. So he'd be halfway through the academy, correct? So, I mean, something we can look at as we go down the road, is if he gets his papers in, we might have a chance of getting a guy into the academy in October and being proactive instead of waiting and being behind each, waiting until December, and then we would have to wait until the end of January to get somebody in.
Is the academy twice a year? Or does it more than that?
Basically twice a year,
What are the
Okay,
chances?
so,
6 months.
so to fill Brockett's position in Papalizio, you have to wait until October to get someone into the academy?
I have a seat reserved, I have 1 seat reserved for July 13th with a John Doe name.
Okay.
And for Brockett, right now, I'm working, and we're on camera, it's tough to say it. There's a person there's an officer that's currently in the academy that has reached out to us, that's saying that he wants to switch departments from Department A to our department. We're currently in dialogue with the police academy to make that happen. If that happens, there's a graduating class of, we have 2 men in there right now.
Right.
There'll be a graduating class July 11th, which this town would save 6 months of training and uniforms that we did not have to supply. Matter of fact, the Board of Police Commissioners and myself, we had a special meeting this past Saturday morning at 8 a.m., and we interviewed that officer, and he made a full disclosure that he wants to come to our town. So I will not have to put somebody in this July 13th class, 2 people, I would have to put 1 in.
So we would still be short-staffed at this point in time.
We're short right now.
Well, I mean, because those 2 have left, and whether they're in the academy or going into the academy.
Yeah, they're just replacing. Yeah, they're still, right. They're
Right.
still going to be.
They're not on the road, so we would be down 2 officers. So to fill those positions, you would be into your overtime account?
Yeah, I'm already into my overtime account, quite a bit.
Chief, the question I have too, also, that's something that would be a good idea if we're able to do that. But another thing is, I notice that some of our officers, retire and they're fairly young guys and they're going to work in other departments. What's the feasibility or chance of us hiring some other guys like that maybe retired from, is that anything that we look into or something we would consider, or is it any, a good idea or bad idea?
Well, we have a saying with the Connecticut Police Chiefs Association, laterals are good, it's only as good as lateral is. Sometimes you get somebody else's headache. The best thing would have been, but we don't do it here, is have the officer, one of our good officers retire and then come back to work for us. But I know we can't do that.
Why don't we, just to ask the question, because I don't know why we don't do that.
Publicly.
Double dipping.
But other towns do allow it?
Not that I know of.
Oh. Yeah, so you would have to switch to another town to not be double dipping.
We had a young department, and most of the men who put their 25 years in, we have quite a few that put their 25 years in they're 46, 47 years old, collecting a full pension from the town of Branford and working at another department, yes.
Okay.
I'm going to just speak for myself, but I have never, I've never said that, I hold firm on hiring new positions, but I've never been, I've never supported reducing the staff, so, and I know we've had this conversation before, when somebody leaves, I think you have to replace them.
Thing is, we
But I wouldn't want to, this is where I'm gonna part with your train of thought. I wouldn't want to say hire somebody ahead of time,
Not knowing what the contract
only
is.
because I'm hoping that we're close to resolving the contract and maybe some things would change on new hires. But I think, somebody leaves, we have to replace them. And if the whole force ends up leaving before we have a contract, we have to replace them. But for me personally, I would hope that we resolve our contract stuff,
contract better be done soon.
yeah.
Well, are you in agreement that they could replace the 2 now that we know of, Brockett and Papaluzio?
Absolutely.
If they're
On those 2, and then if the next academy is October that he's talking about with the possible retirement of Onofrio, is we can just
I think if
wait?
somebody actually retires, we
Right.
have to replace them.
Or could you put in and hold a spot in the October and come back to us, let's say in August or whatever, September?
put that in motion.
And see once, we'll know better by that time if the contract's settled or not, or how close we are.
Not settled by October, heads are rolling.
Well, I'll make the
I mean,
motion.
because he held a spot in the July one already, with the John Doe, so why couldn't he do that?
But what do we, so, actually, explain again, who's leaving, how many were down?
Papaluzio and Brockett.
Papaluzio,
So
New
right at the
No.
moment, we're
2.
down 2. You have new officers for the
Right now.
guys that left last year?
Yeah, right now, we're down.
We're down.
You're down 4.
We have 4,
Well, they're down 3 because Papaluzio's still here.
yeah, but
Okay.
Yeah, another 3 weeks, yeah.
Yeah,
a couple more weeks.
So right now, we have 3 less bodies than we
Yes,
are supposed to.
Correct.
Oh.
2 are in the academy,
and Rocky as well.
and Brockett's already gone.
Okay, so 2 are in the academy and Brockett's gone.
Once they come out of the academy counselors, they still have to spend another 10 weeks, 400 hours by state
Right.
law on the road, which is FTO, field training
So they want-
officer.
probably be on the road
It's
until...
about a good 10 months.
October. The three that are in the academy right now, if the other one works out,
Well, yeah, if that works out, that's a
then they
home
would
run.
all be on the road approximately October.
Well, I'll move the motion to hire 2 new hirees to replace the present officers that are, one that has left and one that is about to retire.
Second.
Well, actually, you're.
Wait a minute,
making a
I'm
motion of
confused again.
one
We
day.
got 2 guys in the academy.
No,
No, those were for last year's
They're
retirement.
replacing Manor and McNamara.
Okay.
And the present one is Brockett and Papalizio.
They're the hiring authority.
Well, there was a hiring freeze, so this is
Just a
just...
hire
Yeah.
freeze.
And
John's
then
wife.
you
I
want
know,
to
hang
lift the
on.
hiring freeze.
Just in
because
those 2
They're
cases.
the hiring authority, so.
So the motion is to lift the hiring freeze
Yeah,
so that they
I-
can
that's
replace
what you
those,
did
Okay, so
those
Yeah.
2
I'll make-
officers.
Just for
I'll make
that.
a motion to lift the hiring freeze to replace the 2 officers, one that presently left and one that is about to retire.
Second.
All right, while
All
we
right.
have that seconded, the hiring freeze is lifted
For those
just
2.
for those 2 people.
Correct.
All right.
Moved by Counselor Esposito, seconded by Counselor Angeloni. Do you understand the motion? Okay. Roll call?
Mayor Candelora.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose.
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni.
Yes.
Counselor Caprio.
Yes.
Counselor Esposito.
Yes.
Counselor Fawnin.
Yes.
Counselor Fuji.
Yes.
Counselor Wentworth.
Yes.
Could you stand up and address the council, please? Give your name. Thank you, Chief.
John Landolfi, 145 Village Street. I'd like to ask if anyone knows where the contract negotiations with the police department stand at this time. As police commissioners, we have no knowledge of any.
Unfortunately, Commissioner, I don't think we can get into that in public. I think that's something either maybe John can discuss with the chief.
I think we actually need to have a powwow with the police commission anyway.
Yeah,
I think that would be a good idea if the council sat down with the police commission and we had a nice little talk.
all right. We'll arrange that, okay? All right, thank you.
David Palumbo, 77 Glen Meadow, Police Commissioner, thank you for your time. I'll be quick. Can we, as we move forward, think about being proactive in, if we get Ronnie Onofrio's letter, and we come in front of you guys later on this year, and being proactive, if we can get a jump start on that for the academy, we might be ahead of the game and getting another guy on the road sooner, that's all. And I would love to sit down at any point, I think for us, as I always said, transparency from us. You guys know what we need, we know what you guys are expecting from us, and I think that's important for all of us. And I appreciate you guys having us here tonight to talk about those things, thanks.
Thank you. Is there anything, other business for? Thank you, Chief. Item B, Steep Grant 2012 Wallfield Swycheck Project.
This is pretty simple and straightforward, just to move the motion, just to apply for the grant, right?
Right, so to complete the paperwork,
Right.
take it for the state to get the
Right.
grant.
Right.
I move the motion.
I'll second it.
Moved by Counselor Angeloni, seconded by Counselor Fucy. Roll call?
Mayor Candelora.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose.
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni.
Yes.
Counselor Caprio.
Yes.
Counselor Esposito.
Yes.
Counselor Fawnin.
Yes.
Counselor Fuji.
Yes.
Counselor Wentworth. Yes.
Item C, Pension Overview.
Good evening. This is in response to Deputy Mayor Rose's request at the last meeting to have a brief overview of the various pension plans that are available to town employees. There's 2 basic and distinct separate types of pension plans in the world as an overview. There's a defined benefit plan, which, as the name implies, says, okay, at the end of your useful life, at the end of your retirement age, I should say. Useful life, yeah. At the end of your career with the town of North Branford.
Making people sound like batteries, Anthony.
I know, disposable. You'll receive X amount of dollars based on a formula, which is based on your final average earnings times your years of service. The benefit, again, defined by formula, and the risk to fund that bears on the town. The town's responsible for funding that plan. A commitment is made to the employee that says, when you turn 65, per formula, you're entitled to X amount of dollars for the balance of your life. You do have the option for a spousal benefit, which we'll talk about in a minute. The second type of pension plan is a defined contribution pension plan. And again, as that name implies, what's defined is the town will put X amount of dollars into a pension plan. The employee invests it as he or she sees fit, and at the end of their career, at the retirement age, they have a pot of money based on their own retirement strategy. They could be very conservative, very risky. So that's the overview of the two types of animals that are out there, the defined benefit and defined contribution. Now let's go to my memo. First off, the police pension. And the police plan currently offers a defined benefit plan. The multiplier for the police plan is 2% for each year of service to the town. And the final average earnings is computed over their final 36 months of their career. All taxable earnings count as their earnings, so whether they do their straight duty, they do overtime, they do extra duty, whatever they do, that counts in their final average earnings. All right? The lump sum that everybody is concerned about or talks about basically says if the person retires at age 50, let's say, and actuarially they're going to live to age 85 based on tables. The actuaries say, okay, on a monthly basis, that person is entitled to X amount of payments. If they present value that back to today's numbers and compute a lump sum, that's what members of the police department have the option of taking, those hired prior to 2004. Also, on the annuity side of the house, the person has an option to take a joint survivor annuity. So in rough numbers, if he's entitled to $100 a month as the calculation, he could opt to say, okay, I'll take $80 a month and I'll leave X amount of dollars to my wife. Or I can take $75 a month and leave a greater amount to my wife. So the less the amount on the annuity that the employee takes, the greater amount the spousal benefit is. So that's the way the defined benefit works. Again, on the police plan, it's pretty straightforward, 2% per year. You do notice the recent change that was put in is that the officers can retire after 20 years of service. 25 years currently is full pension. They can go after 20 years of service if they want to. However, the lump sum is not available. It's got to be an annuity basis at that point. So that's the police plan. Currently, the employees contribute 8% of their taxable earnings, and the town in the 12-13 budget is putting in 28.7% of their earnings. All right. Employees are eligible to join 1-year anniversary. As of May 18, there were 20 active members in the police pension. As you heard the chief say, they're down a few over where they typically have been. The town plan is similar.
Hold up a minute. What's this, the recent change?
Right, the recent change allowed for the 20-year pension.
When did that how recent is that?
2004.
So that was the 2004. So that all happened when the pension got locked in for 10 years?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. That was the last time any significant changes were made.
Okay.
Recent, yeah. Recent and never mind. Town employees. Anybody that was here prior to 1999, the only plan the town had was the defined benefit pension plan. In 1999, the town implemented a defined contribution pension plan. And employees that were here at that time had the ability to jump to the defined contribution plan or stay in the defined benefit plan. Typically, those that had more service stood into the old plan, and newer members went into the defined contribution plan. Although there were some folks who were making, if you remember back in 1999, they were making 15, 18% on their mutual funds. They saw it as to get the pot of money and to invest it, and that's what they chose to do. The multiplier on the town plan is 1.5% per year of service, with a little bit less than the police plan. And in order to get full pension on the town plan, you need to stay to age 65. You can go at 55, there's a penalty, it's about 7 or 8% per year, to about, if you go at 55, early retirement, it's about half what you would get if you stood to 65. The only lump sum that pertains in the town plan is people that have what they call de minimis amounts, less than $100 a year, and those people can get a lump sum if they want to cash out their benefit. Top of page 2, currently the town plan, the employees are paying 4% in that plan, and the town in the 12-13 budget is going to pay 24.9% of their earnings. The percentage seems high, and you'll notice that, as I mentioned before, the defined benefit plan on the town side is a closed plan. Anybody after 99 goes right into the defined contribution plan, so as the number of people in that old plan diminishes, the percentage is going to get greater and greater. So the actuary is trying to compute different ways of reflecting that number so it doesn't appear to be a really large number, and you can imagine when the last person remaining in that plan, it could be a really sizable number to make the obligation. We'll talk about that in a minute, about the actuary. Defined contribution, again, in 99 went in place. Currently, the employees contribute 2%, and the town puts in 8% of their taxable earnings. On the May 18th payroll, there are 41 members in the defined contribution plan and 8 members remaining in the defined benefit plan. There are 3 different groups that are in the town plans. There's the town employees, there's the Board of Ed employees, and then there's the cafeteria employees. On the Board of Ed payroll, in that same payroll, there were 62 members in defined contribution and only 9 remaining in defined benefit. In the cafeteria plan, there were 15 members in the new plan and 4 remaining in the defined benefit plan. So the defined benefit aspect of this is very similar to the police plan. The multiplier is different. It's a little bit less aggressive, 2% for the police plan versus 1.5% for the town plan. And again, in 99, the defined contribution plan went into place. The employees at that point had the option to switch, and all new employees from 99 on are in the defined contribution plan. Any question on that one? Okay. The last one, Section C, talks about the volunteer fire and ambulance plan. The way that works is members have to earn a year of credited service. And to get that year of credited service, they have to do X amount of calls, X amount of drills, X amount of meetings. And those stats are reviewed by the Board of Fire Commissioners every year and then subsequently given to the Pension Committee for their adoption and forwarding on to the actuary. Right now, the multiplier for the 11-12 year is $24.50 per month per year of credited service to a max of 35 years. At age 65, you can collect your pension, and a new classification was put in place probably about 5 to 7 years ago, called an active retiree status, that people that are turning age 65 can opt to get their pension but stay active in the department until age 70 when they must retire. Payments in this case can only be in monthly annuities computed by the town's actuary. There is the option for the life only, and then the survivor options do exist as well. 100% of the contribution of this plan comes from the town, nothing comes from the volunteer firemen. On the top of page 3, at the last evaluation, there were 88 active members in the fire plan. Retirement procedure. Basically, any employee or firefighter wishing to retire sends a letter to their supervisor, typically copies the finance department. Estimated earnings are sent to the actuary. They then get approved by the pension committee in concept, and then at a subsequent meeting, when the final numbers, the employee actually leaves, final payrolls are paid out, given back to the actuary to firm the numbers up. The employee makes a decision which way they want to go, and then the payments actually start. The payments are cut by a firm out of Wallingford called Insurance Programmers, and they do the administrative work of cutting the pension checks and direct deposit if that's what the employee chooses. Oversight of the pension plans falls under Chapter 69 of the Town Charter, the Pension Committee. It's an 8-member committee comprised of 2 counselors, currently Councilor Wentworth, Councilor Fawnin, with an alternate, I believe it's Councilor Rose, a police commissioner, who's currently Chris Kazi, with an alternate of John Landolfi, fire commissioner, which is Angelo Tosi, with an alternate of Ed Prenier, thank you, and a BOE member, which is Mr. Ferriol, the newest member, with Lou Paternoster as the alternate. And a police union representative, which is currently Anthony Nucolo, town manager, and myself. And we also serve as the administrator of the plan, signing off on the plan documents. and any agreements with Morgan Stanley. Plan documents. Important part about the plan documents, the employees are entitled to receive pension plan documents and summary plan descriptions from the town. The last time that a thorough review was done was around the year 2000 when we changed actuaries. So about a year and a half ago, the pension committee authorized the expenditure to have any negotiated changes that were made and blessed by the town council promulgated into one document. Things like the change of 20-year pension was never in the documents for the police officers. That was step one of the upgrade. Step two of the upgrade was there have been legislative changes that have occurred since the year 2000. So the pension committee said, okay, have an attorney who specializes in pension review, which happened to be Bruce Barth from Robinson and Cole, go through and analyze the plans, make sure they're compliant with all the recent laws. And he found significant changes in all the plans, at least 2 or 3 pages of changes that went before the pension committee. And the pension committee endorsed those changes because failure to endorse those changes would make the plans lose their taxability status. And all the would be taxable pension payments, everybody. So in order to bring the plans into compliance, the police plan, the town employee plan, and the fire plan, there were changes that were made by the pension committee based on the attorney's review. Now, the final step in that loop is those plans coming back for the town council as the ultimate authority to bless those plans. So they've been blessed by the pension committee. The negotiated changes are included now. The legislative changes are included now. And the town council will be the final blessing on that. The last thing, the summary. Again, you've heard a lot in neighboring communities where the pension plan is in dire straits. And that's typically the result of politics being played with the annual required contribution. The great thing I could say is that when the actuaries go through and perform their evaluation and they say we need to put 25% in for the pension and we build it into the budget, this town council historically has never touched that. And if you look at other towns around us, not mentioning names, when they play games with that number, they say, oh, it's a tough year, we'll put 10% in, not 25. Well, that accumulates, and it's a big problem. And the towns are issuing bonds now to cover their debt. We're about 60 to 80% funded, which is pretty darn good amongst our 3 plans as of the last valuation. Has that been better? Has it been worse? Well, we took a big hit in 2008 like everybody else did. We lost about 1/3 of our pension plans, as the economy did. We made great strides to get it back. We constantly make changes at the pension committee meeting based on our consultant to try to give us the best results and position us as best he sees fits. And we try to do the best we can. So, any other questions specifically I didn't address? Any other questions you're looking at? Or?
Nope, you did a good job.
Okay. The documents that the actuary produces, the evaluations are done annually. Again, what they do is they go through the 3 plans, the police plan, the town plan, and the volunteer fire plan. They analyze the current roster of people in those plans, try to plan out what their retirement benefit is, and then make sure the town is funding that appropriately, and then it's how that spills into the number that goes before the council in the budget.
We're the only ones that don't get a pension.
Sorry?
So we don't get paid.
We're the only ones that don't get a pension.
Well, it's true.
How come we get all the headaches?
And we get all the headaches. I know. All right, thanks, Anthony. Item D, annual report, fiscal year 2008, 2009, financial summaries, financial year 2003 through 2008.
Mayor, this is prepared for your information, and for the council members, this is the first in a series of reports. The financial information that is provided for the previous years covers that period of time for which an annual report was not provided to the town council. So we're bringing these up to date as quickly as possible. The format is in place now to ask the department heads to keep these. They've been supplying information, so we will be following this format and moving it forward as soon as possible.
Is that something you're going to hand out to the public?
Sorry?
Or is that something you're going to hand out to the public? Because that's what we usually do.
This was a limited quantity. We did the printing in-house because there's no real budget for this.
Well, I have to say, I think it's a disgrace to put something out like that to anybody.
Where are we? Funding for Gale Drive sewers.
This kind of marries up with the motion that Kirk presented earlier. The topic that we've had, the discussion we've had at the Finance Committee is what's the appropriate rate to charge on these assessments? If you did your internal cost of borrowing, quite honestly now, it'd be very low. What I chose to do was to go to the most recent bond issue we had, which is November 2011, and that had at least a longer-term horizon on the interest rate environment. And the true interest cost we paid at that time was 2.75%. So my recommendation that kind of mirrors what the market at least shows as the longer-term interest rate than what we're paying currently. So that's why this motion suggests that 2.75% interest rate.
I'd like to move the motion as presented.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to state on the record that I think it's appropriate that we consider
Right.
fairly soon some additional relief beyond elderly, but also for disabled persons specifically, in view of the correspondence we received this evening.
I agree, Joe. Okay with adding that to the motion? I am.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm good with
I'd like
that.
to change it in ordinance, right, to do that?
Yeah, we can do it, we don't do it tonight, but I think we
We'll
should
do it at
do
the
it
next council
Right.
meeting.
certainly fairly soon and well before these people get their first bill.
So just have it on the agenda for next meeting?
Yeah.
Well, the next WPCA meeting, which
Yeah.
would be July.
I'll look at that and get something back to you
Okay.
in the regulations.
Okay,
It'll be the end of the month.
all right. Yeah, yeah, but this isn't gonna move
Yeah,
before
this is
then.
the first meeting, we only do WPCA
Yeah.
at the first meeting.
The first, okay.
Motion by Counselor Angeloni, seconded by Counselor Esposito. Roll call.
Mayor Candelora.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose.
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni.
Yes.
Counselor Caprio.
Yes?
Counselor Esposito.
Yes.
Counselor Fawnin.
Yes.
Counselor Fuji.
Yes.
Counselor Wentworth. Yes.
Item F, Twin Lakes Road, Queech Road Project, state release of property and rights to the town.
Briefly, the town reconstructed Queech Road and a portion of Twin Lakes Road. It was actually back in 1999. It was a state-funded project. And during the project, the state went through the rights-of-way acquisitions as required to construct the project all within town roads. The property acquired is in the name of the state. The state's in the process of trying to turn it over to the town. It's all bordering pieces along a wide right-of-way or a realigned right-of-way of Beach Road and a little bit of Twin Lakes Road. So they're in the process of putting those documents and maps together to turn it over to the town. That's basically what that May 23rd memorandum states. What they're asking for, and that'll be forthcoming and be reviewed by the town attorney and myself, and then it'll be on a subsequent agenda once we get all that information. What they're asking right now is basically concurrence to any of the land located in the town of Branford that was acquired as part of the project. It was a town of North Branford project, right in the town line on Beach Road. And there were some slivers that were acquired in Branford where it extended into Branford that the town of North Branford signed below waiving any interest in any land that was acquired in the town of Branford. I mean, my recommendation is there's really no issue with the town manager signing this and returning that to the DOT. It's all the remaining pieces they're talking about, are little slivers along the right of way in the town of Branford, that we have no interest in them at all. So that's the only thing that this letter really is asking for at this point in time. I don't know if we need a motion, or concurrence. That's really all they're asking at this point. Again, once the acceptance comes forward, we have to be looking for formal action at that point in time.
We need a motion to waive the interest.
Do we receive the documents yet?
We don't have the documents, right?
There are no documents at this point. Again, I've gotten maps were attached to this, and there's a bunch of little sliver takes along the way. They're not offering the property at this point. What they're basically doing is looking for concurrence. The town doesn't, relinquishes any interest in the town of Branford properties. And again, this is the little sliver takes that were done in 1998, 99 when Beach Road was reconstructed. The funding source at that time was all federal and state limits.
So all the property you're talking about is in Branford?
No.
Oh.
There's properties in North Branford, a bunch of properties in North Branford that the state will be turning us over
They're releasing
title
it
in the
back.
near future.
Right.
It's the pieces, there's a couple little sliver pieces in Branford that were at the tail end of the project, and they're totally within the town of Branford and, I think it's called Northford Road over there, that they're just looking for concurrence that the town of North Branford has no interest.
So you're looking for a motion that says North Branford's not interested in any of the property that's in
In
Branford,
Branford.
Branford on Creech Road?
That's simply that.
Move it.
I'll move it.
Second it.
Moved by Counselor Wentworth, seconded by Counselor Fucy. Roll call.
Mayor Candelora.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose.
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni.
Yes.
Counselor Caprio.
Yes.
Counselor Esposito.
Yes.
Counselor Fawnin.
Yes.
Counselor Fuji.
Yes.
Counselor Wentworth.
Yes. And I take it when they come along and want to do the same thing to us, it'll come back to us? And our
I'd be sure, if it ever went that way, if it's ever a project, I mean, the same type of thing that DOT.
Thank you.
Finance Subcommittee draft agenda for June 13th, 2012.
I would like to make a motion to add item H, to have an update on the NBIS Renovate as New project and the NBH roof projects regarding the status of state funding.
I'll second that.
Moved by Counselor Angeloni, seconded by Deputy Mayor Rose. Roll call.
Mayor Candelora.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose.
Yes.
Counselor Angeloni.
Yes.
Counselor Caprio.
Yes.
Counselor Esposito.
Yes.
Counselor Fawnin.
Yes.
Counselor Fuji.
Yes.
Counselor Wentworth.
Yes.
Item H, suspense list review.
We didn't do this at the last meeting, or
I thought it was done, yes.
what happened with this?
Well, I
Is
have
it coming
some
back?
questions.
Okay.
We were told this goes back out for collection.
Be the marshal.
This doesn't just, these just fall off the face, this doesn't go back to the marshal for collection.
It is.
Is that list just personal property, or is it real estate too?
It's motor vehicle and personal property.
Motor
Real estate
vehicle.
is not done. Real
Okay.
estate, because we lien the property,
It doesn't
we
go
don't
on?
suspend that.
Okay.
There are, as I mentioned previously, there's a list being compiled that'll be probably at finance, perhaps, if not, definitely on the council agenda, that'll go to the town attorney's office for people that have typically 3 or more years of delinquent real estate.
These haven't already been tried to collect and then came back?
We've tried to collect.
Right.
Right, and then
Once it goes on the suspense list, then what happens?
it goes to the marshal.
Does it come
No,
off the tax rolls?
it comes off the tax rolls from
It comes off the tax rolls.
Right, and the bills are given to the marshal to collect.
the bills. You
The
can't,
marshal's given a stack of bills.
but you can't collect on a bill, you have to have an alias tax warrant. And that warrant would stem from, you can't just collect off a bill, there's no authority to collect on a bill.
In the past, the list has been given to the marshals.
all this has been written off. It's a loss
Not
to the
written
town.
off. Taken from list A to list B, not written off. Every year, yeah, we collect on those lists,
What's the rate of collection on a suspense list?
Minimal.
Minimal.
minimal. Typically,
I mean, does it make sense not to keep putting on a suspense list?
no. Typically, what happens is if people move to a different town and their motor vehicle gets reported of delinquencies, they are forced to come back and pay their bill. That's the way we get some money in, pennies on the dollar. But there are people that collect, that pay up every year.
How do the other people register their cars, I wonder?
Change the name,
Just changing it, yeah.
move out of state.
Because now they do it by license, I would think it would be getting harder to
There
skirt
was
that, you
talk
know?
years to do by social security number,
Yeah,
which would be one number you get that never changes in your life.
yeah.
Do we have a lockbox, or do we get mail here?
We have a lockbox at the post office.
So that eliminates any mail coming here, so there's no chance of seeing an address on a check or an address on an envelope that could help you or help the town find some of these people.
I'm confused, what you mean by that?
Well, I mean, what if somebody mails in a check, okay, and their name is on the check, and like you said, it was a P.O. box, but
Right.
on their check, it has their address,
Right.
right? Cross-reference it, you could probably find them on this list that way.
What does the tax collector do to try and collect on these?
He goes to the post office, he calls the post office up and asks them, Vinnie Caprio's bill came back at Lake Road, does he have a P.O. box? Sometimes he gets cooperation, sometimes he doesn't. We'll use switchboard.com, 411.com to try to find him by the computer. We also have access to the state DMV motor database.
I mean, I see two people on here that live up the street from me,
I believe it.
all right?
Yeah, I mean, we got a guy here
That we just put-
we just recently appointed to a commission in town that says mail returned
Right.
for $800. If I send my tax bills back, do I go on the mail return list and I'll get it suspended?
I will tell you that with the post office, there are issues with the P.O. box versus physical mailing address. There are issues where if it's meant to go to number 12 Jones Road and it goes to number 11, they will not put it in number 12's mailbox. They will send it back. Again, we try to go on.
No, so I totally understand the mail return.
Right.
What do we do to try and find it when, like I said, we know that we could go to a night meeting in town and find some of these people?
Well, as I mentioned, we try to go through, we have access to the DMV database, which has a lot of times same information, because the information comes from the DMV initially, with registration of cars. So they have the same thing on file most times.
Should we look at, I know, like up north, and I know, there's a lot more conservative, but up north, every town, like the town I go up to all the time, in the newspaper, they publish the name and last known address, and it's like, hey, if you know where these people are, come, they publish everyone's name. Should we do something like that before we put it on a suspense list? Say, who can find these people? I mean, that's a lot of money.
John,
And a lot of this stuff is 2010.
Does this suspense list go back to you so the marshal collects this?
I believe what happens is if the marshal doesn't collect everything, which of course, that sounds like the case, then the list, I think, comes to the town council to decide whether or not you want to pursue anybody on that list
Exactly.
by referring it to my office.
Right, if this wants to go to collection, or if it just gets written off.
Exactly.
Right.
So if we vote on the suspense list, it gets written off.
Exactly.
And it
that's-
doesn't, we have to make a direct
Well-
referral to your office.
Right.
That's what we
The
were
first
told.
wave would be the marshal trying to collect it. The second, then there'd be a different list of those that were not collectible. The practice has been the council will then look at that list and decide which, if any, of those names on the list should be referred for more aggressive collection, perhaps through the town attorney's office.
We
And then-
talked before in finance, it's how aggressive you guys want to get. If you want to bring a collection agency tomorrow, bring that whole list to, they'll knock on people's doors and take their cars from them with tow trucks. How aggressive do you want to get? We can get that same way.
Oh, if we all gotta pay our taxes, why don't
So
they?
instead of going to the suspense, you want to turn it over to the marshal, is what you're saying first.
That's
You'll
what
see
happens
they-
now. They turn over to the marshal.
Well,
I mean,
so
we
now the
just-
marshal can't collect, and
No,
then
but-
they go to a suspense list?
Well, I don't know, that's, I guess,
No, I
What he's
think
saying.
upon unsuccessful the mailings, they go to suspense, right?
Chicky, would you come up here for a second? Yeah. Yeah. I would like to ask you some questions.
no,
No,
no.
a little professional.
Am I on the list?
No. We just want to know.
I'm just happy I wasn't.
The correct answer on the list. It's grown quite a bit.
Is this the list that goes to the marshals, or does it get written off? The suspense list?
I have no idea what the tax collector does.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully he
At the-
does.
I mean, I think that's a question for the collector, his process of dealing with accounts that are not collected.
So, let me just clarify this if I could. They get mailed out, they come back undelivered. Then this
Efforts
goes.
are made to try to find the correct address.
Exactly.
Through
And
the
then,
internet or DMV database, whatever access he wants to use.
and then if he can't find anything dead-ended, it
Right.
goes to suspense.
Correct.
And at that point,
Goes to the marshal who has
Well-
skip tracing capabilities and better means to find people than what you and I do.
well, see, now I'm getting confused because John had mentioned unless it's, if we vote on it, it comes off of the tax roll unless we specifically refer it to John's office to go
That's-
out to the marshal.
No. Motor vehicle and personal property is one avenue. Real estate is things that historically have been given to the town attorney's office.
Okay.
Before we start kicking people out of their houses, the council blesses it, and then it goes to John's office for further action.
Okay, so
Motor
just real
vehicles
estate,
handled by the
motor
marshal.
vehicles handled by.
So if you hire a collection agency to go after this, do they just charge you a percentage of what they collect? Or do you have to
They
pay
add
a
onto
fee?
the debtor. So it's working way on.
So why don't we send it to a collection agency?
That's what other towns do.
Why won't
We could very well do that.
Right, why weren't we presented that option?
I'm gonna be
That's what
honest
the
with you.
marshal does.
I'll do it for free. I will find all these people for you. And have the addresses at the next meeting.
Let's go, do it.
Could I just ask one question? When the bill goes out and is returned, and the tax office goes through their process of looking for these people, and they can't find them, does it not then go to collection before it goes on suspense?
We do not use a collection agency.
The collection meaning the marshal?
Meaning the marshal? Yes.
Exactly.
The marshal gets
Does the
them,
marshal not come before the suspense list? The suspense list, I
Depends on
always
certain years.
thought was the end of
The last
the
resort.
last.
It is the last resort.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
And that would be for the council to rescind the approval of the suspense list from the last meeting.
Didn't we table this last meeting?
No, because we were told
We
that it
were
was
told
going.
that if you'd like to have further collection efforts made, then rescind.
That's what we were
that.
told was going to happen, that there was going to be further collection.
Yes, for clarification though, Mr. Mayor, rescind that approval as a suspense list and call it a delinquent tax collection list per the attachments that were presented on May 15th, and that would clarify.
it's already been approved, it's already been taken off the list, it's already been physically removed.
But we should have been provided with these
So you
options.
rescind.
We should have been provided with these options at that last meeting. How can we vote on things when we have no knowledge of things? That's what's upsetting to me, when we have to vote on
It's the same
things.
practice we've done for 100 years.
Well, you said
Doesn't
we
mean
can
it's
go to
right.
collection, and we're losing this money now.
What I said before is that in the finance committee, we've talked about different options, how aggressive do we want to get?
Well, why wasn't that option brought to the council level?
We decided we didn't want to get overly aggressive and use collection dates.
Well, shouldn't the council decide that, and not the finance committee?
That's what we've talked about, that the finance committee doesn't make decisions, that decisions are made by the council.
That sounds like something's definitely wrong with the procedure there.
Anthony?
See, it is something that, like in 2001, we suspended $13.
Yeah.
In 2009, $20,000. So, you know what, we as a council need to look at things differently.
Yeah.
When it's $20,000 versus $13. So, I know we talked a little about this at the last meeting, but I'm trying to read between the lines. It seems like these things here that the mail was returned on, we suspended them, and there was no effort to try and collect
true.
anything else at all. It's not.
That's not true at all. I myself have gotten involved and tried to help them out over there. Some people, it's impossible to find, especially the ones who move out of town, it's nearly impossible to find.
So I guess where we've said that, we appointed one of the guys here to a commission
Yep.
in town, seems like we ought to be able to talk to him. And then when we get to the businesses that went out of business, I'm building a house down the water in East Haven, and one of the businesses here that went out of business, I have his card in my wallet.
There you go.
Because he stopped to try and sell me some stuff the other day, and I said, hey, where, I'm like, wow, there is a God. So I said, hey, where are you out of anyway?
It could be a different company now, though.
Same name. I'm out of East Haven. Last year I was out of Northford. So I'm just saying, there's gotta be, it seems like it's easy to find some of these people.
It seems
I don't
very
think we're gonna
easy
do
to
anything with the
try.
ones that are deceased.
That's true.
So.
Although I have
They
talked
have a
to,
state.
I have
They have a
talked to
state.
Judge Forgione about that. Seriously, and we're going to try to get a little better cooperation between the
Estates.
opening of states
It's
and,
opening of
and
states.
so we are going to address that aspect of it as well.
Anthony, perhaps this will help provide some clarity. Just because it's on the so-called suspense list and therefore it's off the tax rolls,
Right.
does that mean that the town still can't go out and collect that money?
No, as I mentioned before, people every year pay off on suspense lists.
So so the idea that you're not being foreclosed from collecting this money, I think frankly that the town or the tax collector should consider renaming this list as a delinquent list, and that the last step be a suspense list. But frankly, you're going to get involved in the tyranny of titles here. Either way.
John, I
If it
understand.
gets to the town council, the town council should make the decision as to whether or not it should be pursued. And if so,
Exactly, and that's
how.
the option that we weren't given. We were not given that option.
Okay. At this point,
At this point,
it's
we'll go to the
important for
agency, we can do tomorrow.
Yeah.
Stuff you want to do, we can make a motion to go to the collection agencies and the collection agencies.
Sure.
Give them the whole list, give them everything on suspense list.
Except
Knock on doors.
We did that once before.
these people are
So
gonna
you
be
do everything
hard.
periodically.
These people are gonna be hard.
I'm pretty sure that's him.
I just want to know the facts with big decisions, that's all.
Yeah, well, it's much easier to make a decision when you know stuff.
What's his son?
Okay.
Move this along.
Well, so we can't rescind the motion,
Right, you can definitely give that
but we
list to
can
a
still
collection
make this,
agency.
we can still take this list and give it to a collection agency.
Yes.
Okay. So we can make a motion.
You give, I'd make the entire suspense list.
There's some fear here that by voting to put this stuff on a suspense list, that we've given up all hope to collect any of this money. Whether or not we're aggressive in trying to collect this money and how aggressive, that's a separate issue for us to decide. But state law mandates that there will be a suspense list, and that these type of taxes, which are deemed uncollectible by the tax collector, be placed on the suspense list every year. It doesn't give us an option. It says we shall maintain a suspense list. That doesn't mean that we cannot go and collect them. So if the guy knocks on Al's door to sell him drywall, and he's now on Route 80 in East Haven, we can send the marshal there. If Al gives that information to the tax collector, the marshal can go there
Right.
and either get a check or seize property. So we're over-focusing on the meaning of the term suspense list. It's an accounting adjustment. We don't longer have this collectible asset. It's deemed uncollectible. But if we're very aggressive, maybe we'll get some of it.
And,
So it's just a question of how aggressive we want to be.
It's a 15-year state statute, just keep that in the back of your mind as well.
Right, 15 years and it falls off, I understand that.
Just also to show the somewhat contradiction in terms here, the sheriff just got that list. So it's not like the sheriff has gone through that list and come back to the town and said, I can't collect anything. He has the list now and is in the process of trying to collect that list, and I'm told that he just got it. So
it's in a marshal's.
I agree
for
with
collection.
what's being said
Okay.
here. The suspense list there has to be a suspense list at some point, but I think what's troubling the council is that it appears that not very much effort is being utilized to collect it, when in fact there is a consistent effort, but the council should have a say in selectively deciding whether or not certain other steps ought to be taken.
So
But right now, we're still in the first, the sheriff still has it, he hasn't even, I don't know if he's even gone through everybody yet.
Right.
the sheriff has this list?
The
Just
list,
got it.
John, or warrants?
He just got the list, I'm told.
So what's enforcing him to collect, or right now we're just trying to
I think you're right,
locate?
they have to be alias tax warrants.
They have to be alias tax warrants
But
to
he
collect.
does that. I think the sheriff prepares that.
No, the alias tax warrants comes from the tax collector.
All right, that sounds, okay.
So if he has the list, he can locate
I don't
addresses,
believe he has
he
a
can,
suspense list.
well, I'm gonna find out when
I
we
really
leave.
don't, because I know this is just
Yeah.
an issue.
I think
Okay.
the question that you need to ask is whether or not warrants were issued on all
We should get,
those.
right, we should get a 5-year back suspense list.
I would say when
Full,
we
we
changed
should get the
marshals.
full list. This isn't the full list.
Oh, definitely, that's
This is
year's
from
installment.
09.
Right.
09
We
to-
should get the full list.
You mean from prior years?
Yeah,
The running suspense list.
yep.
When we changed marshals back when Mark White took over, he went through the entire list. Again, as you see, there's a ton of people out there. I'll try to, it's almost impossible.
Yep.
It sounds easy to find people, you know,
I
100 people on a
I
list of
know. But I'm
100.
telling you right now, the lockbox is hurting it. It's hurting the town. You get the mail in here, and you look at mail,
It
and
comes to
you'll
a
see,
PO box here.
and you'll be able to
Post office.
cross-reference.
We see the mail.
Yeah,
It's
okay,
a lockbox in the PO box.
all right.
So we see the mail. But if that's the case, then the bill be paid. Right, if they send a check in, the bill would be on the list.
Yeah, but there are some people you're saying are using PO boxes versus
Right.
addresses, and you can learn a lot from an envelope and a check.
Right, but if the check came in, they wouldn't be on the list, they'd be paid. That's my point.
Right, but
person pays the bill.
I'm sure there's double on here, I'm sure. As you had said, there's people register cars that,
Oh, yeah.
you know.
In different towns, register your car, change your name, register your car, you're never gonna catch up to them.
Let's just say we should aggressively go after this, especially if it's not gonna really cost the town anything to go after
Yeah,
it.
it's zero. The collection agency has it on the bill.
I'm all for accountability.
You wanna do that? We could do that, make a motion to go out to collection agency, we can send the,
Collection?
Well, we wouldn't, then we're paying them a fee where
they
Well,
pay. They add it
that
on.
goes
They
on
add
to
it
the
on.
bill.
they add it on their bill
Yeah.
as well.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't come off our,
Sounds like the easy way out.
So
Well,
are
why
you
don't
getting
we-
to two people?
But
Why don't we
marshal-
send
Why
to
don't
a-
we utilize the
No.
marshal and then the
Precisely.
collection agency
Yeah.
if.
But on the
if all
old
else
list that
fails.
Anthony's referring to from 5 years ago, why don't we give them to a collection agency?
Right,
Let them do whatever they can.
right. So you can't lose.
He might have
We should get the
as
full
many years
list.
back as we could go already, the marshal though, that's the problem.
Well, if he's got that from that many years ago and it hasn't been collected yet, obviously we need to do
Well,
something
no, I think he
different.
just got him.
What about the old marshals that had the list?
Oh, that I know, that I know.
If they didn't do it, why is this guy gonna do it if he has all the same tools they did?
Not every guy has the same resource and programs.
Let's do something, guys,
What would
it's
you like to
getting
do?
late.
Yeah, let's move.
My patience is
Right.
getting
Collection
short.
agency, what would you like to?
I don't know, if it's at the marshal, I guess.
The current list is, Anthony's talking about the older people on suspension.
You gotta get the complete list, is what you need. You
So
need
let's-
the complete
John, can
list.
you find out how far back the marshal has, or Anthony, how far back he has in years, and then the next meeting will go from there?
They would have to answer that.
Yeah, no,
They
I mean,
give it to
yeah,
us.
I'm sorry, redirected it.
Yeah, we
That
need
we
the
need to
complete
decide.
list.
I've got an
Yeah.
idea for you too, as far as the total list as well.
Okay. All right,
Okay.
thank you. Chick, I'm sorry, I made you put you on the spot. Thank you.
It was nice seeing you.
Okay.
Item I, Town Manager's Evaluation, Possible Action.
Is this an executive session?
It's exec session, isn't it?
Not the schedule.
I don't know about that. What,
Well, the town manager is here, so if you want to go into executive session, he would have to waive any objection to have the discussion, if there would be any, in public session. So,
I'll waive the objection to the executive session. That's the council's pleasure.
in other words, we're gonna talk about an open session, or do you want?
I'm waiving.
Oh, okay, yeah, because that's,
All right, so we're going to move to citizen statements and petitions. None?
I've got one. Citizen statement and petition. This Saturday, at Rose Orchards, we're doing the antique tractor pull again. And, so you should all come out and watch the Rose Boys beat Ryan Van Wilden. And see John's Ford beat all the John Deeres and farmals. So,
do I need to amend the
Make a
agenda?
motion to, oh, you gotta amend.
say who it's limited to.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a motion to amend the agenda to include a executive session to include the town council, the town attorney, and the town manager. I think that's it, right?
No, he waived his,
No.
oh, I'm sorry.
It has to include the town
It
manager.
doesn't have to, but it's up to whatever you want to do.
Well, we're gonna include them,
Right.
right?
yeah.
All right, moved by Counselor Fucy, do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Angeloni, roll call?
Mayor Candelora?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rose?
Yes.
Councilor Angeloni?
Yes.
Councilor Caprio?
Yes.
Councilor Esposito?
yes.
Councilor Fawnin?
Yes.
Councilor Pucci?
Yes.
Councilor Wentworth? Yes.